Chapter 68. If Lin Yuan wanted to evolve this Ironhead Stoat from Elite 9/Flawless to Bronze grade, he would only need 1 hour. Even if he wanted to evolve it to Epic before evolving it to Bronze grade, it would only take over 2 hours. Lin Yuan looked at the spiritual ingredients on the table. Among them, the sharp pine needle and the heavy iron ore were not cheap. If these spiritual ingredients were to be sold outside, it wouldn't be a problem to sell them for 2 Radiance dollars. This was only the Class 1 Creation Master Test, and it was obvious that the high-class Creation Master Test would require even more resources. This also showed how much effort the Radiance Federation put in to provide resources for the Creation Master's nurturing. The resources were all free, and it was no wonder why the Creation Master Test could only be conducted once a year. Lin Yuan picked up the spiritual ingredients on the table and didn't use his own method to concoct the spiritual ingredients like the other creation masters. Lin Yuan immediately fed the spiritual ingredients on the table to the elite Ironhead Stoat and channeled spirit chi into its body. Feeding the spiritual ingredients to the Ironhead Stoat wouldn't cause it to evolve. However, it could speed up the Ironhead Stoat's evolution speed. Lin Yuan shortened the 1-hour time to 40 minutes. The Ironhead Stoat let out an intense evolution. After a series of evolution, the Ironhead Stoat successfully evolved to Bronze grade. Lin Yuan had already completed the Class 1 Creation Master Test. Lin Yuan simply walked out of the breeding room. Since he had decided to showcase himself, he wouldn't leave any room for negotiation. This way, after exposing his talent, he would receive more attention. After exiting the breeding room, Lin Yuan noticed that apart from Elder Ning, there was also a woman wearing an alizarin red dress. This woman looked to be around 28 years old. However, her aura clearly indicated that this woman wasn't simple. It was because a regular 16-years-old woman wouldn't have such an aura. She should be an expert. Elder Ning walked forward and looked at Lin Yuan. Did you fail to concoct the spiritual ingredients? Why did you come out of the breeding room so quickly? Elder Ning frowned as he spoke. Even if Lin Yuan failed, Elder Ning wouldn't blame him. On the contrary, Elder Ning would still praise Lin Yuan's academic achievements. But now, Lin Yuan came out of the breeding room after only 40 minutes. In Elder Ning's opinion, Lin Yuan had given up halfway. Even if the spiritual ingredient concoction failed, it would depend on the effects of the remaining spiritual ingredients to allow the Fae to complete its evolution. This was an attitude. Ling Xiao took a glance at Lin Yuan and didn't say anything. When Lin Yuan came out, he wanted to tell Elder Ning that he had completed the test. But unexpectedly, Elder Ning felt that he had failed the test. Elder Ning, I've succeeded. I didn't fail in the concoction of the spiritual materials. I've completed the test. Lin Yuan's words made Elder Ning unable to stand still. He walked into the breeding room to check on Lin Yuan's results. At that moment, Lin Yuan realized that a woman who had not spoken had walked up to him. Yesterday, your 3 knowledge-type spirit chi occupations exams were very exciting. It seems like your creation master talent is also very strong. Lin Yuan didn't know how to respond to the woman's words. When this woman spoke to him, he felt that she was not so much praising him, but rather commenting on a fact from a certain point of view. This feeling of communication made Lin Yuan feel very strange. Her tone was filled with praise, but there was also a sense of alienation. At that moment, Elder Ning had already walked out of the breeding room. When he saw the woman conversing with Lin Yuan, he introduced her to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan, this is our Redbud City Lordess, Lord Ling Xiao. After introducing Ling Xiao, Elder Ning looked at Lin Yuan's delighted face. His astonished and amazed expression were about to drip out. Little Yuan, not bad. You completed the Class 1 Creation Master exam in just over 40 minutes. Lin Yuan didn't immediately respond to Elder Ning. Instead, he bowed to Ling Xiao with a solemn expression. Greetings, City Lordess. Now, Lin Yuan knew why this woman gave him such a strange feeling when speaking to him. Redbud City was hot and rainy, and it was always covered with dark clouds. City Lordess Ling Xiao's famed Fae was a fantasy breed Ling Xiao flower. Every time there was a rainstorm that could cause a flood, the Ling Xiao flower would become a fantasy breed. Whenever there was a rainstorm that could cause a flood, the fantasy breed Ling Xiao flower, would always shatter the rain clouds. This was also the reason why Redbud City had never experienced a flood, even though it was hot and humid, and would rain every few days. It wasn't just that. A long time ago, Redbud City had opened up a massive dimensional rift. City Lordess Ling Xiao had suffered severe injuries during the battle to protect Redbud City. She might have been saved, but her emotions were hurt, which resulted in her current state. Lin Yuan had been living in Redbud City and was under Ling Xiao's protection. Lin Yuan had heartfelt respect for Ling Xiao, who was an expert that protected a region. If it wasn't to protect Redbud City, how could a king-class expert like Ling Xiao suffer severe injuries? Ling Xiao waved her hand and patted on Lin Yuan's shoulder. She might not have any emotions when speaking, and her expression didn't change, but Lin Yuan felt as though he could feel that sudden joy. Are you going to participate in the Class 2 Creation Master exam? Lin Yuan nodded and heard Ling Xiao's words. Why don't you participate in the Class 2 Creation Master exam tomorrow? You have just completed the Class 1 Creation Master exam, and rest for a day. It will be safer for you to participate in the Class 2 Creation Master exam tomorrow, in a victorious state. Lin Yuan didn't know why, but he felt that Ling Xiao placed great importance on his Class 2 Creation Master exam. It was the same for Elder Ning. Lin Yuan said, I will just participate in the Class 2 Creation Master exam now. The Class 1 Creation Master exam didn't consume much energy for me. Ling Xiao looked at Elder Ning, who nodded. Ling Xiao did not say anything else. Alright kid, just head to one of the rooms inside the breeding room to undergo the Class 2 Creation Master exam. The Class 2 Creation Master exam isn't as simple as the Class 1 Creation Master exam. Not only do you have to evolve an elite Fae from normal to epic, but you also have to heal a bronze Fae with damaged roots. Elder Ning said to Lin Yuan. It was obvious that he was rather worried about Lin Yuan's Class 2 Creation Master exam. The Class 2 Creation Master exam would usually require a Class 1 Creation Master to temper themselves for several years before they had the qualifications to participate. Moreover, the probability of passing was pitifully low. The Class 1 Creation Master exam was just to increase the phase grade, but the Class 2 Creation Master exam would involve the phase quality and source. Starting from Class 2 Creation Masters would be considered as stepping into the true world of Creation Masters. Every Class 2 Creation Master was an important asset of the Radiance Federation. As for the current Lin Yuan, even if Elder Ning thought highly of him, he still couldn't be at ease. In fact, when the Moon Empress had suggested the reform, Elder Ning had felt that the Moon Empress standards for accepting disciples were too harsh. Chapter 69. The Class 1 Creation Master exam was just a threshold. It was used to screen if one was qualified to become a Creation Master, and it was considered the easiest exam for Creation Masters. However, such a test had imperceptibly blocked countless people. The Class 2 exam was much more difficult. Only after becoming a Class 2 Creation Master would one be considered an all-round Creation Master. Not only could it increase the phase grade, but it could also increase the phase quality and heal the phase roots. Therefore, this hurdle wasn't something that a regular Class 1 Creation Master could easily overcome. Furthermore, Lin Yuan was still so young. Ling Xiao's face still had an indifferent expression, but her hands were already clenched tightly. Lin Yuan entered the room inside the breeding room and took his exam question. On the exam question, Lin Yuan looked at the Fae that he needed to evolve and realized that it was actually an elite/flawless Jasmine Lily. Lin Yuan couldn't help but lament at his fate with the Jasmine Lily. As for the other Fae, Lin Yuan's brows were knitted together. It was a massive green crab that was the size of a small round table. However, this massive crab was lying there on the verge of death, as though it was enduring some kind of unbearable pain. It was a sheer pincers crab. It was a bronze Fae that could fight in the water. Its massive pincers could suddenly burst out with power that could even snap steel bars. On the surface, Lin Yuan couldn't see any injuries on the sheer pincers crab. However, when he saw the lively sheer pincers crab lying on the ground and spitting out bubbles from its mouth, Lin Yuan realized that the sheer pincers crab was on the verge of death. Lin Yuan knew that the sheer pincer's crab's injuries were extremely severe. When Lin Yuan touched the sheer pincer's crab's shell, he knew where the sheer pincer's crab's problem was. When Lin Yuan touched the sheer pincer's crab's hard shell, he realized that the shell, which was originally as hard as plate armor, had actually caved in a little. When Lin Yuan pressed down, the sheer pincer's crab trembled in pain. Lin Yuan immediately didn't dare to use any more force. It was obvious that the sheer pincer's crab's shell was completely shattered. However, the fascia on the back was still connecting the shattered shell together. Without this layer of fascia, the sheer pincer's crab's shell would have been shattered into pieces. For the outer shell to suffer such damage, it was obvious that the inside of the sheer pincer's crab had also been impacted. If the sheer pincer's crab were to continue recovering, it wouldn't be long before the sheer pincer's crab died. While looking at the sheer pincer's crab's pained expression, Lin Yuan extended his hand and placed it on the sheer pincer's crab's body. This time, Lin Yuan didn't circulate his spiritual power to help the sheer pincer's crab recover its injuries. Instead, he summoned Morbius' exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss. In an instant, a beach that could accommodate the sheer pincer's crab's feet appeared in front of Lin Yuan. The jade-white sand under the feet of the sheer pincer's crab emitted a healing energy, allowing the sheer pincer's crab's injuries to recover in an instant. The sheer pincer's crab shook its pincers with difficulty, as if it was feeling the recovery of its body. While Lin Yuan was conjuring the Pure Land of Bliss, he also extended his hand and pressed on the sheer pincer's crab's body to transfer spiritual power to help it recover its roots. After around 2 hours, Lin Yuan only managed to heal the sheer pincer's crab after activating the Pure Land of Bliss. Lin Yuan didn't enter the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone to heal the sheer pincer's crab. The Spirit Lock Spatial Zone was Lin Yuan's trump card, and he would never expose it. This was Lin Yuan's first time using the Pure Land of Bliss. Previously, Lin Yuan would need at least 4 hours to heal a bronze fey with damaged roots. Now the time required to use the Pure Land of Bliss had been reduced by half. This meant that the Pure Land of Bliss's healing ability was the same as when he circulated his spirit chi to heal the fey's roots. Lin Yuan couldn't help but lament at the power of the Pure Land of Bliss. The Pure Land of Bliss's effects were also related to the surrounding spirit chi density. This meant that if the fey was placed in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, the recovery time would be increased by several folds. Just as Lin Yuan finished healing the bronze sheer pincer's crab and was preparing to upgrade the jasmine lily's quality, Lin Yuan saw the sheer pincer's crab suddenly cutting the protruding carapace on its head. It then cut off a large protruding carapace and placed the protruding carapace in front of Lin Yuan. It foolishly spat out bubbles. Lin Yuan had already possessed the abilities of a creation master for a long time, but this scene had given Lin Yuan a shock. All creatures had spirits and knew gratitude. According to the knowledge that Genius had learned, the sheer pincer's crab cherished the crab stone on its carapace. The crab stone was considered a type of spiritual ingredient. It might not be expensive, but to a fey like the sheer pincer's crab, the crab stone was the most important existence. When harvesting the crab stone from the carapace of the wild sheer pincer's crab, it was something that the sheer pincer's crab would risk its life to protect. Now that it knew that Lin Yuan had rescued it, it personally cut the crab stone and gave it to Lin Yuan. This gratitude that came from a species gave Lin Yuan an indescribable feeling. It was a kind of throbbing feeling. The throbbing feeling contained a more fundamental understanding of all creatures. Fays and humans actually possessed emotions too. Lin Yuan received the crab stone from the sheer pincer's crab. The sheer pincer's crab then foolishly started to stroll in the breeding room and regained its lively nature. Lin Yuan stored the crab stone in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Lin Yuan would keep this crab stone for eternity as a form of encouragement and responsibility for becoming a creation master. Lin Yuan was already familiar with the process of upgrading an elite phase quality to epic. Right now, he naturally didn't face any obstruction and completed the upgrade of the jasmine lily's quality. At this point, Lin Yuan had already completed the Class 2 Creation Master exam. Looking at the spiritual ingredients that weren't touched on the table, Ling Yuan took out a portion of the spiritual ingredients that should be used and placed it in the spirit lock spatial zone. After bidding farewell to the sheer pincer's crab, Lin Yuan exited the breeding room again. Seeing that Lin Yuan had left the breeding room, before Elder Ning could say anything, Lin Yuan heard Ling Zhao's question. How is it? Lin Yuan revealed a smile that was unique to a sunny boy. The sheer pincer's crab is cured, and the jasmine lily's quality has evolved to epic. After hearing Lin Yuan's response, Ling Zhao's tightly clenched fist relaxed. She said good 3 times in a row. She looked at Lin Yuan with eyes filled with admiration. Elder Ning quickly went to the breeding room to take a look. After confirming that Lin Yuan was done, he walked out with a hearty laugh. Chapter 70. After passing the Class 2 Creation Master exam, Lin Yuan's heart was at ease. This was a plan that Lin Yuan had already decided on. And now that he had passed the exam, he could be at ease. All Creation Masters who pass the Creation Master exam in Redbud City will obtain a store in Redbud City. Later on, I will get someone to send the information of the store to your Star Web account. You can choose from the store on the Star Web. After speaking, Ling Zhao left the Creation Master Association. Ling Zhao's footsteps were very light, and it wasn't hard to see Ling Zhao's joy from his footsteps. If it was in the past, Ling Zhao would recruit Class 2 Creation Masters who had passed the exam and strive to keep them in Redbud City. Class 2 Creation Masters would be able to develop well no matter which major city they went to. In fact, they would even be able to obtain a decent store in the royal capital. There was competition between the major cities, be it for the Radiance 100 qualifications or the resources of Creation Masters. These were the key factors in the competition. As for Lin Yuan, Ling Zhao would prepare a store. However, Ling Zhao felt that it wasn't necessary for Lin Yuan to recruit. Lin Yuan had already met the Moon Empress requirements, and Ling Zhao would inform the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress would make arrangements and also accept Redbud City's favor. That was enough. Lin Yuan scratched his head. He already knew that Creation Masters had great benefits, but he didn't expect for Redbud City to gift him a store after passing the Class 2 Creation Master exam. Redbud City was a major city in the Radiance Federation, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Being able to own a store in Redbud City was something that Lin Yuan didn't even dare to think about. However, even if Lin Yuan obtained a store in Redbud City, he wouldn't leave the Xia region for now. Opening a store in Redbud City wasn't within Lin Yuan's current plan. Lin Yuan's current plan was to accumulate resources like a rolling snowball to increase his phase grade and his spirit chi occupation rank. He would strive to reach the 100th floor of the Star Tower as soon as possible and ascend the Celestial Stairway through the promotion competition. After Lin Yuan logged in with Elder Ning and registered, he went through the Creation Master Association's certification. Lin Yuan was already certified as a Class 2 Creation Master and was bound to his Star Web account. From now on, Lin Yuan was truly certified as a Class 2 Creation Master. A pair of old hands solemnly placed a badge with all kinds of life symbols and 2 stars on it on Lin Yuan's chest. Lin Yuan, from now on, you are a Class 2 Creation Master certified by the Radiance Federation's Creation Master Association. Work hard on the Creation Master path in the future. Elder Ning emphasized the word good luck. These 2 words seemed to have a kind of magic that penetrated Lin Yuan's ears and struck his heart like a kind of legacy. It was the acknowledgement and encouragement from a senior to a junior. Lin Yuan solemnly nodded. Elder Ning, I will continue to work hard. I will not relax at all. Lin Yuan spoke very seriously. At first, becoming a Creation Master was a way for him to survive. But now Creation Masters were already a profession that Lin Yuan liked to do. Whether it was feeling the transformation of life or the process of saving lives, he felt proud of himself. Elder Ning laughed heartily, his eyes filled with kindness. You've done a good deed today. After hearing Elder Ning's words, Lin Yuan was rather confused. Something good? Of course it is something good. This bronze sheer pincer's crab is a contracted fae with an owner. By healing this sheer pincer's crab, You have also saved this spirit chi professional's life. Isn't this considered a good deed? Lin Yuan didn't expect that the sheer pincer's crab with such injuries was actually a contracted fae with an owner. Elder Ning continued. When spirit chi professionals train in the wilderness and encounter sudden dangers, the fae's source might be damaged. Most of these spirit chi professionals don't have the ability to heal their fae's source. During the Creation Master exam, the Creation Master Association will give these people a chance. If they pass the exam, they will naturally be saving a person. If they fail, they will just have to endure the basic suffering. This proposal was proposed by the three overlords. After the three overlords proposed this project, the Creation Master Association will provide a huge amount of resources to carry it out every year. However, this old man feels that it is very worth it. When Lin Yuan heard Elder Ning's words, he understood what Elder Ning was talking about. Today he had passed the exam, and also saved a stranger. This was a double meaning. The Creation Master Association's actions had reflected the warm side of this world. This warmth came from the Radiance Federation, which was also where Lin Yuan lived. This warmth was constantly strengthening Lin Yuan's sense of belonging. Elder Ning carefully helped Lin Yuan put on the Class 2 Creation Master crest and said, "You will wear the Class 2 Creation Master crest during normal times." Wear the Class 2 Creation Master's crest during normal times. The Class 2 Creation Master's crest can be used as an accessory to directly enter the star web. Wearing this crest will bring you plenty of convenience during normal times. This is another star web card, so take it well. This star web card was something that Lin Yuan had always wanted. When one's status in the Radiance Federation reached a certain level, one would be able to obtain a second star web card. This star web card was certified by the Radiance Federation, and it allowed a person to have two identities on the star web. If a Creation Master possessed this star web card, the two identities would be a form of protection for the Creation Master. Lin Yuan was planning to separate his identity as a Creation Master from his Star Tower identity. He would use his identity as a Creation Master to operate a store on the Star Web, and use his other identity to challenge the Star Tower. Now Lin Yuan finally obtained this second Star Web card. Lin Yuan received the Star Web card from Elder Ning, and kept it. Just as he was about to bid farewell, Elder Ning grabbed him again. "Why are you in such a hurry? Also keep this well." Lin Yuan saw Elder Ning handing over a small box. When he opened the box, there were two crests inside. The crests were carved with two stars, and a shield symbol. This is a Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest. Class 2 Creation Masters can accept two Spirit Chi professionals as retainers. The retainer's responsibilities are like henchmen, but the Creation Master has to help nurture the retainer's phase. These two crests represent that the Radiance Federation can certify that you have two retainers. If a retainer violates the retainer's responsibilities, you can request for arbitration from the Radiance Federation. However, you must carefully consider the retainer's character. When Elder Ning saw Lin Yuan keeping the box, he waved his hand. "Kid, you can leave now. When you are free, you can visit this old man in Redbud City. If there is anything, Ling Xiao and I will contact you." Lin Yuan walked out of the Creation Master Association's entrance and saw that the sky was already dark. Chapter 71. If there were any changes before becoming a Class 2 Creation Master, and after becoming a Class 2 Creation Master, Lin Yuan felt that the true change could only be described with one word: steadiness. Lin Yuan had made plenty of plans previously. However, the most basic requirement for these plans was to obtain the qualifications of a Class 2 Creation Master. Now Lin Yuan had finally obtained it, being confident that he could obtain it, and before he truly obtained it, it would only be an illusion. When all the illusions turned into reality that he could wear on his chest, it had indeed increased Lin Yuan's confidence. A Class 2 Creation Master was already sufficient for him to have a foothold in this world. As for the benefits that Elder Ning and City Lordess Ling Xiao had mentioned, Lin Yuan didn't put it to heart. Right now, Lin Yuan was going to the Rare Lifeform Pavilion's first floor to transact with the masked man that he had agreed to meet yesterday. Lin Yuan might be a Class 2 Creation Master now, But if he missed the opportunity to obtain the blue flash butterfly, it would be nearly impossible for him to find it again. For fays, beautiful and rare fays like these might not always be used for contracts. Most of these beautiful fays were kept as pets, and were just a type of decoration. Their unique beauty bestowed upon these fays a value that couldn't be exchanged with money, regardless of which world humans were in, and how many billions of years they had evolved. Their pursuit of beautiful things had never changed. Lin Yuan didn't need this blue flash butterfly because of its beauty, but because of its basic ability. In order to increase his strength and obtain the best combination with Morbius Spirit Lock, Lin Yuan had to obtain this blue flash butterfly. With such thoughts in mind, Lin Yuan arrived at the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. As soon as Lin Yuan swiped his star web card, an attendant immediately came forward and bowed to him. Greetings, Class 2 Creation Master. Welcome to the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. May I know which floor you wish to go to? If you have any special phase, you can head to the tea room on the 3rd floor to have a cup of spirit tea. I will help you search for the phase that you are interested in. The appearance of the Rare Lifeform Pavilion staff made Lin Yuan realize something. He was now a Class 2 Creation Master, and wasn't limited to the Rare Lifeform Pavilion's 1st floor like yesterday. Instead, he was able to move freely through all 4 floors of the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. Thank you, but I don't need any help. I will just casually stroll around the 1st floor. You can go back to your work. After speaking, Lin Yuan smiled and nodded as a greeting before walking into the Rare Lifeform Pavilion's inner room. The attendant had been working in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion for 2 years, but now he stood rooted to the ground. The girl's face was dyed with a layer of red. She didn't expect this sunny and handsome man to not only be a Class 2 Creation Master, but also so amiable. No matter what position a person was in, being polite was an upbringing that was ingrained in one's bones, and would always leave a good impression on others. Lin Yuan was on the 1st floor of the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. As soon as he entered, he found that there were one or more Eye of the Storm. He could vaguely sense that all the customers in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion were heading in the same direction. Either a supreme grade Fae had appeared, or there was a show to watch. Lin Yuan wasn't interested in this. However, the more he walked in the direction of the masked man's counter, the more he realized that the Eye of the Hurricane, where the crowd gathered, seemed to be in the direction of the masked man's counter. Lin Yuan took a few quick steps and realized that it was indeed the case when he got closer. There were many people surrounding the counter of the masked man, even more than last night. The masked man stood there with his hand on the counter and didn't say a word. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard a rather arrogant voice. You said that you could prove that you caught these 4 butterfly cocoons in the wild, so I bought 2 and gambled my luck. How can I afford your price? Why are you waiting for the customer you made an appointment with yesterday? Did you sign the agreement, or did you get a deposit? The voice came from a middle-aged man with black hair mixed with half a lock of white hair. However, it wasn't accurate to say that he was a middle-aged man. Hair color could be maintained to slow down the growth of white hair. Skin could also be maintained to maintain a youthful appearance. However, the wrinkles and old spots that were left behind by the years indicated that this middle-aged man was actually an old man who maintained his body well. The masked man took a look at the time on his phone and said, "It is 7 a.m. now. Yesterday, I made an appointment with him at 8 a.m. If he didn't come by 9 a.m., I would have chosen to sell these cocoons." The arrogant middle-aged man hadn't spoken yet. A young man beside the middle-aged man spoke with dissatisfaction. "How can my master wait here for 2 hours? We are paying, but you aren't selling? Aren't you looking down on my master?" While speaking, he stuck out his chest and patted on the crest on his right chest. Lin Yuan looked over and saw a star drawn on the crest, and there was a shield beside it. This was the crest of a Class 1 Creation Master's retainer. Class 1 Creation Masters could also have a retainer. It was obvious that this young man was that middle-aged man's knight retainer, and that middle-aged man was also a Class 1 Creation Master. The young man was now rather anxious. His master was a gambling addict, and when he saw a wild butterfly cocoon, his heart would itch to buy it. If his master was rejected now, his master would be in a bad mood. and the young man would be the one to suffer. Becoming a creation master's retainer might allow one to obtain the creation master's help. The creation master's retainer crest would allow one to handle matters with superiority. However, behind the radiance, he was just a retainer. Due to his master's status, there were some things that he couldn't say. As the retainer, he naturally had to take the lead. He sneaked a glance and received his master's gaze. The young retainer straightened his back even more. The surrounding onlookers were all focused on the commotion and didn't take a closer look. They didn't expect to see an esteemed creation master on the first floor. The Rare Lifeform Pavilion's first floor was mostly filled with ordinary people, and it was naturally hard for them to come into contact with a creation master that even low-ranked spirit chi professionals couldn't. Most of the onlookers had eyes that were filled with novelty and reverence. However, there were also a minority that had eyes that were filled with dissatisfaction and probing. This retainer's words were obviously using his power to oppress others. If such a thing didn't happen to them, they might not be able to empathize with it. However, it was truly hard for those who had a sense of justice to like it. The masked man walked to the corner and squatted on the ground without saying anything. When the retainer saw that the masked man wasn't giving him any face and was about to teach him a lesson, he heard a calm voice echoing from behind. When doing business, others can choose to sell or not to sell. Fey transactions aren't like normal transactions. They have to follow the intentions of both parties. Don't you understand such simple logic? Chapter 72. It wasn't that Lin Yuan was going to help the masked man out of this predicament. It was because a large part of the reason why the masked man was facing such a situation was because of the promise he made with Lin Fan last night. A gentleman would keep his promise, and once he said it, he would definitely keep his promise. Lin Yuan didn't expect that the masked man would actually keep his promise with a single sentence and leave in a hurry. It would be a lie to say that he was not moved. If not for the masked man's honesty in keeping his promise, he would not have been able to do anything. If the masked man didn't keep his promise, Lin Yuan's blue flash butterfly would have flown away. The retainer could only speak ruthlessly, as the Rare Lifeform Pavilion wasn't like the outside world. The retainer understood that this wasn't his master's store, and his words wouldn't be so effective. Even a C-rank spirit chi professional would have to be polite to him. Even a B-rank spirit chi professional would have to be polite to his master if he needed help. In the Rare Lifeform Pavilion, his words wouldn't be of any use. In fact, if he caused a huge commotion in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion, he would have to bear the responsibility of the Rare Lifeform Pavilion. If the Rare Lifeform Pavilion was really going to punish him, his master wouldn't even help him. Even if his master helped him, what could he do? It might not be of any use either. The Rare Lifeform Pavilion wasn't backed by a private organization, but the Radiance Federation. Now that he suddenly heard that someone was meddling in his business, his anger that had nowhere to vent suddenly found an outlet. Where did this Tom, Dick, or Harry come from to meddle in my business? While speaking, the young retainer turned around, but before he could finish speaking, the rest of his words were stuffed back in his mouth. For a person who was extremely concerned about his status as a Class 1 Creation Master's retainer, what he wished the most was for others to see the crest on his right chest. Therefore, when he was sizing up others, he would subconsciously look at the right chest of others first. It was fine if he didn't look, but once he did, he was shocked. This 17 or 18-year-old boy wore a badge similar to his master's on his chest. However, this badge didn't only have 1 star but 2. He was actually a Class 2 Creation Master. In the young retainer's impression, the few Class 2 Creation Masters that he was fortunate enough to see when he followed his master were all elderly. A young Creation Master like Lin Yuan, who was also a Class 2 Creation Master, had immediately shattered the young retainer's knowledge. When he recalled how his master was so respectful to those Class 2 Creation Masters, then, he recalled what he had said about cats and dogs. The young retainer was petrified on the spot. He felt his tongue go numb and couldn't utter a single word. The young retainer's reaction was too dramatic. The person who had previously been full of vigor suddenly became timid. This change shifted everyone's attention to Lin Yuan. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan had become the eye of the storm on the rare lifeform pavilion's first floor. Soon enough, someone noticed the Class 2 Creation Master crest on Lin Yuan's chest. He could not help but cry out in alarm. He is actually a Class 2 Creation Master. This is my first time seeing a Class 2 Creation Master. Class 2 Creation Masters can actually be so young. Most of the people around him were ordinary people. He might know that a Creation Master had a noble status, but a Creation Master was too distant from his life. Therefore, a Class 2 Creation Master was just a respectable title for ordinary people. But for Class 1 Creation Masters, it was completely different for Class 2 Creation Masters. Becoming a Class 2 Creation Master was something that he yearned for. But it was also a huge mountain that was pressing on his head. When the middle-aged man saw that Lin Yuan had become a Class 2 Creation Master at such a young age, he immediately withdrew his prideful attitude. The domineering attitude from before had completely turned into cautious humility. He quickly went forward and spoke with a face full of smiles. I didn't expect to see my lord here. It is truly an honor. This Class 1 Creation Master didn't even recognize Lin Yuan. But seeing that Lin Yuan was able to become a Class 2 Creation Master at such a young age, the middle-aged man looked at Lin Yuan with an additional layer of reverence. Creation Masters had their own inheritances. With the guidance of a teacher, a Creation Master's advancement speed would be faster. At the same time, Creation Masters were also a profession that consumed a lot of resources. Each advancement would require a massive amount of spiritual ingredients to accumulate. Becoming a Creation Master was a kind of comprehension, and also the improvement of skills. The reason why it was so expensive for a Creation Master to upgrade a Fae was also because of the huge amount of resources required. This was also the reason why there were very few noble children from poor families. As Lin Yuan stood here, the Class 1 Creation Master felt that he was a person with power and wealth. Age and achievements were enough to prove everything. However, the Class 1 Creation Master didn't know that Lin Yuan was actually an anomaly. His standard as a Creation Master was completely derived from his spirit chi occupation. Lin Yuan didn't have a good impression of the Class 1 Creation Master's previous actions. Therefore, he didn't respond to the middle-aged man, and walked in front of the masked man instead. I am here to trade. Thank you for abiding by the agreement last night. The Class 1 Creation Master didn't mind Lin Yuan's disregard at all. Instead, he let out a smile, as though he was relieved of a heavy burden. Disregard meant that he wasn't going to pursue the matter. He didn't expect for the masked man to be abiding by the agreement, because he had an agreement with the Class 2 Creation Master. When the middle-aged Class 1 Creation Master looked at the masked man, he felt his teeth itching. Can't you just tell me that you have an agreement with the Class 2 Creation Master? You are like a dead duck that can't even utter a single word. You are simply trying to scam me. However, the Class 1 Creation Master didn't know that the masked man was also looking at Lin Yuan's right chest with an astonished expression. He didn't expect that he had an agreement with the Class 2 Creation Master. The masked man stood up and said, I will prove it to you. These 4 butterfly cocoons were found in the depths of the endless forest, and you will pay the full price for the transaction. The masked man didn't want to ask a question, and was more like a statement. Lin Yuan nodded and responded, all right. Lin Yuan could use true data to check the butterfly face species, so he naturally didn't need the masked man to prove it. However, Lin Yuan didn't stop him. The masked man had been treated as a swindler yesterday, and there were people who were intentionally watching the show today. Therefore, when the masked man was proving it to Lin Yuan, he was also proving it to everyone present. The masked man circulated his spiritual energy for a long time, and his body was trembling a little. He then summoned a purple insect cocoon. This insect cocoon was huge, and wasn't like a butterfly cocoon. It was like a fleshy cocoon wall that was tough. It was just like a small purple heart that was nurturing a life. At that moment, Lin Yuan used true data to check on the insect cocoon. The instant he saw the insect cocoon, Lin Yuan's eyes contracted. This insect cocoon wasn't an ordinary Fae, and was actually a source-type life form. Chapter 73. A source-type life form could be said to be the most mystical and rare thing. Every source-type life form had different characteristics. For example, Lin Yuan's source seed didn't require spiritual energy. It used blood to form a contract, and evolved according to the contractor's will. However, the other recorded source seeds were different. Lin Yuan had asked Chimey to specially learn about source seeds. When looking at the purple flesh cocoon summoned by the masked man's spiritual energy, Lin Yuan had a vague guess. This source-type life form was likely an insect queen. The insect queen was like a reproduction machine, and could use the insects that it devoured for each grade as a template. It produced a large number of insects that replicated the template lifeform's genes. It could be said that the insect queen itself was equivalent to an insect swarm. However, the insect queen's spiritual energy requirement for the host was insane. A spirit chi professional that contracted the insect queen would never be able to contract other fays. This was also the difference between the source seed, red thorn, and this source-type insect queen. Now that the insect queen was in a dying state, its biological source must have suffered a severe injury. The insect queen had no choice but to exist in a cocoon form to maintain its life. Source-type life forms had always had a flaw, and even after so many years, the Radiance Federation had not resolved this problem. When a source-type life form was severely injured, it could use a large number of spiritual ingredients to nourish it. However, once the source-type life form was in a dying state, it couldn't use spiritual ingredients like other fays. Source-type life forms were creatures that were extremely difficult to injure, which meant that the source seed's source was extremely difficult to damage. Since the source-type life form was in a dying state, and had regressed to its initial state, it could be said that this was the lowest state that the source-type life form could maintain its life. The source-type life form could only accept the purest spirit chi, and be nourished by a large amount of pure spirit chi in order to recover. This was similar to the spirit siphon goldfish. However, the purity of the pure spirit chi, required by the spirit siphon goldfish, was far inferior to that of the dying source-type life form. High-purity spirit chi could be extracted through the ratio of spiritual ingredients. However, the high concentration of spirit chi extracted from spiritual ingredients would have a certain medicinal effect. Even if the medicinal effect was mild, it would be fatal to the dying source-type insect queen. Now Lin Yuan finally understood why the masked man was so dispirited. Lin Yuan could understand such a dispirited feeling, and could even empathize with it. This dispiritedness came from the insect queen's injuries. The insect queen's spiritual energy requirement made it impossible for the masked man to contract other fays. This was undoubtedly cutting off the masked man's path to becoming a spirit chi professional. Even the Class 1 creation masters couldn't recognize what kind of fey the purple flesh cocoon in the masked man's hand was. There was so much knowledge in the world. If Lin Yuan hadn't used true data, and coincidentally allowed Genius to learn about source seeds on Star Web, Lin Yuan wouldn't have been able to recognize them. The masked man looked at the purple flesh cocoon in his hand, and said to Lin Yuan after a long while, "Put your hand on the cocoon, and you'll see the scene where you found the 4 cocoons in the depths of the forest of infinity." If a source-type life form like the insect queen was categorized, it should be a production-type and spiritual-type source-type life form. According to the characteristics of the insect queen, which was a spiritual-type creature, it could recall scenes from its memories. The masked man didn't care about other people's opinions. It was enough to prove to Lin Yuan that there was no problem with the origin of these 4 insect cocoons. The masked man did not take the doubts of others to heart. Lin Yuan took 2 steps forward and pressed his hand on the purple flesh cocoon. Lin Yuan could feel the faint temperature coming from the flesh cocoon. The life form inside the flesh cocoon was already extremely weak and fragile. It was just like a flame that could be extinguished at any moment in the wind. If it was during normal times, when the surrounding onlookers saw this method of proof, they would think that it was an act. However, with Lin Yuan's status as a Class 2 creation master, no one would have such thoughts. The 4 butterfly cocoons might sound like a sky-high price of 120 radiance dollars, but it was just a drizzle in the hands of a Class 2 creation master. Even with a Class 2 creation master's status and nobility, He wouldn't do such a thing. When the surrounding onlookers saw that there was no more excitement, they dispersed. The middle-aged Class 1 creation master looked at the young retainer, who was still standing there in a daze, and was infuriated. He slapped the young retainer's neck, causing the young retainer to quiver. When the young retainer saw his master's enraged expression, he shrunk his neck. He followed the middle-aged creation master, and left the rare lifeform pavilion's first floor with his tail between his legs. If it was during normal times, the middle-aged Class 1 creation master would have stayed behind to see if he could build a good relationship with the young Class 2 creation master, Lin Yuan. It was to pave a path for his future. However, when the middle-aged Class 1 creation master recalled that his retainer had spoken rudely, he was afraid that the retainer would settle the score. He didn't dare to stay any longer, and left this troublesome place. The eye of the hurricane had also calmed down, and the rare lifeform pavilion's first floor was restored to its previous appearance. Lin Yuan placed his hand on the purple flesh cocoon, and felt the spiritual wave coming from it. Lin Yuan's mind formed the scene of the masked man collecting the 4 insect cocoons. The 4 insect cocoons were indeed found by the masked man in the endless forest. Just as Lin Yuan was feeling the scene in his mind, he suddenly felt a painful struggle coming from the purple flesh cocoon. Lin Yuan could feel the pain from the insect cocoon's spiritual world. However, this struggle was pitifully weak under such pain, and the intense spiritual wave was like the last burst of warmth before the setting sun. The masked man suddenly had a nervous expression. It was obvious that he could feel the insect queen's pain, and even his hand was trembling. When Lin Yuan felt the insect queen's pain, he circulated the spiritual power in his body and injected extremely pure spirit qi into the insect queen's body. If the insect queen's pain was like boiling hot water that was on the verge of exploding, then Lin Yuan's spirit qi was like clear and moist warm water. When added into the hot water, it might not be able to instantly stop the boiling state like cold water, but this warm water could silently moisturize things and use the most gentle and stable method to calm the insect queen down. Lin Yuan's spirit qi was like clear and moist warm water. When added into the hot water, it might not be able to instantly stop the boiling state like cold water. As expected, when Lin Yuan's pure spirit qi was injected into the insect queen's body, it woke it up. The insect queen was a source seed with a powerful recovery ability. In just a few minutes, the insect queen's injuries didn't have any improvement. However, the insect queen had also recovered from its state of near death to near death. When Lin Yuan withdrew his hand and lifted his head, he noticed that the masked man's eyes were staring at him. Unlike before, the masked man's eyes were no longer dispirited and gloomy. Instead, it was like a person who had been separated from the light in the darkness for many years, suddenly saw a rainbow hanging in the darkness. His eyes were filled with hope after the apocalypse, as well as an indescribable joy. Chapter 74. The masked man hesitated for a while. Then his gaze gradually became firm. "That I don't know if I can." The masked man's words were somewhat hesitant. However, Lin Yuan could roughly guess what the masked man wanted to say. Lin Yuan spoke first. "Then follow me to the tea room upstairs. We can talk slowly." The tea room on the rare lifeform pavilion's 3rd floor was actually a private room with an elegant and comfortable environment. However, it was specially soundproof, so people didn't have to worry about being overheard or being disturbed in the tea room. The masked man quickly responded, "All right." After speaking, he prepared to follow Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan didn't expect the masked man, who had always been calm, to suddenly become anxious. Lin Yuan pointed at the 4 butterfly cocoons on the counter. "We have to complete the transaction for the 4 butterfly cocoons first." When Lin Yuan was collecting the 4 butterfly cocoons, he looked at one of the ordinary white butterfly cocoons, and it was imaginable how excited he was. Lin Yuan placed the blue flash butterfly's cocoon in a separate box. As for the other 3 cocoons, the Vajra butterfly was left for Chu Ci, and Lin Yuan specially kept it. As for the other 2 cocoons, there was a poison powder butterfly in a pale green cocoon, and a hunter butterfly in a rather large white cocoon. The Vajra butterfly was the most variable existence among butterfly life forms. Although it wasn't particularly rare among butterfly life forms, it was still rather expensive. An elite Vajra butterfly could be sold for around 40 radiance dollars. As for the poison powder butterfly and hunter butterfly, they wouldn't even be worth 10 radiance dollars. Therefore, without the blue flash butterfly, Lin Yuan would be making a loss by purchasing these 4 butterfly cocoons. However, with the blue flash butterfly, it was still a huge profit. After the transaction, Lin Yuan was about to transfer the money to the masked man through the star web. However, the masked man refused no matter what. Lin Yuan simply patted the masked man's shoulder and said, "That's a different matter. I bought your butterfly cocoons, so I naturally have to pay you radiance dollars. If you have something to say later, we can talk in the tea room." After hearing Lin Yuan's words, the masked man was finally willing to give up. When Lin Yuan found a staff member and requested to use a pantry, he was led to the 3rd floor. The environment of the pantry was very good, and there were even a few pots of silver-ranked flowers in full bloom. The room was filled with a light and elegant fragrance. He sat on the sofa in the tea room and drank the spirit tea cooked with fays. He could not help but feel that the fragrance of the tea had washed away all the fatigue in his body. The masked man sat there, obviously not in the mood to drink this rare cup of spirit tea. Lin Yuan said, "If there's anything you want to say, just say it to me." Lin Yuan did not directly expose the masked man's thoughts. There were some things that Lin Yuan hoped the masked man would personally say, as a farewell to the past. The masked man stared at Lin Yuan for a long time before he slowly reached out and took off his mask. The face behind the mask was not as old as Lin Yuan had imagined. He looked to be about 25 or 26 years old, but his eyes revealed the vicissitudes of life that did not match his appearance. After taking off the mask, the man activated his mental power. Then, a deep purple rune appeared and circled around the man. The spiritual energy within the man's body also began to circulate. Although a cyclone had yet to form on the surface of his body, a stream of air had already formed. Lin Yuan raised his brows. He hadn't expected the masked man to have a willpower rune. His spirit energy level seemed to have reached rank A, and if he had a fantasy breed spirit beast, he would be considered a king-class powerhouse. With this man's age and talent, it was impossible for him to be an ordinary person. Such talent was considered top-notch in the Radiance Federation. Furthermore, he had a source-type life form, the Insect Queen. If the Insect Queen wasn't heavily injured, it would be on the verge of death. The man in front of him should be one of the top experts of the younger generation. Lin Yuan didn't ask, but the masked man spoke. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Wuxia, 27 years old. I used to be an A-rank combat class spirit chi professional and have an insect queen. It's Platinum C/Epic." Wuxia introduced himself seriously, and Lin Yuan listened attentively. After introducing himself, Wuxia added, "That's right. 2 years ago, people also called me Radiance 100, sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm." Upon hearing this, Lin Yuan's eyes widened, and his pupils contracted. Sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm? Even Lin Yuan, who wasn't very interested in news, had heard of sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm. A class 3-dimensional rift had opened up not far from Cold Frost City. This class 3-dimensional rift was connected to the gloomy underground world. The underground world's life forms were famous for being greedy and cruel, and they would hunt down all living beings on the surface. This class 3-dimensional rift didn't cause any losses to Cold Frost City because sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm, had controlled the swarm of insects and had single-handedly delayed the class 3-dimensional rift's underground world's beast dynasty for half an hour. It was this half an hour that prevented Cold Frost City from turning into a purgatory. However, after that, sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm, disappeared and never appeared again. 2 years might not be enough to erase everything. Compared to the other Radiance 100 children, sequence number 39, Heart of Insect Swarm's reputation was no longer as resounding as before. 1 year ago, during the Radiance 100 sequence ranking, Due to Heart of Insect Swarm's absence, he was disqualified from the Radiance 100, which was a pity. However, Lin Yuan didn't expect that a sequence number 39 of the Radiance 100 would be wearing a mask on the Rare Life Form Pavilion's first floor, with his injured Source-type life form, and relying on butterfly cocoons to make a living. This made Lin Yuan's heart suddenly feel an indescribable pressure. Perhaps seeing the change in Lin Yuan's expression, Lu Jie continued to explain. In the previous battle, it was almost impossible for me and the Insect Queen to survive. It was Lord Bamboo Monarch who used 3 months to heal me and barely maintained the Insect Queen in a near-death state. I chose my current life. I don't want to become a cripple and rely on my past glory to live. Lin Yuan could hear the pride in Lu Jie's words. Lin Yuan couldn't completely understand Lu Jie, but he admired him very much. Perhaps this was the life that a hero chose and dedicated to. At that moment Lu Jie said, "But today you let me see hope. However, you've given me hope today. I wonder why your spirit chi is able to heal the Insect Queen's injuries." Chapter 75. A firm voice rang out. "I swear with the willpower rune that I will become Class 2 Creation Master Lin Yuan's retainer, and will abide by the responsibilities of a retainer. If I violate the oath, I will be repelled by the will of heaven and earth." As soon as Lu Jie finished speaking, the purple willpower runes hovering around him suddenly stopped. A layer of abstruse shackles appeared on the rune, and Lu Jie's willpower rune was tightly locked on one end of the shackles. The other end of the shackles entered Lin Yuan's spiritual energy. Lin Yuan could feel that he and Lu Jie had formed a subordinate relationship. This was a rune oath that could only be initiated by someone who had comprehended a willpower rune. The consequence of going against it was to be shielded by the will of heaven and earth, never to be able to sense spiritual chi again. It could be said that the rune oath was the most inviolable oath after the spirit chi awakening. This was because once a rune oath was violated, it was equivalent to an expert who could comprehend the will of heaven and earth and condense runes to become an ordinary person who could not even feel spiritual energy. Such a punishment was even harder to accept than death for spirit chi professionals. Lin Yuan did not expect Lu Jie to suddenly swear a rune oath. Lin Yuan looked at Lu Jie and did not know what to say for a while. After obtaining the 2 Creation Masters retainer crests, Lin Yuan had thought of accepting 2 retainers. However, he had never thought that he would recruit someone who used to be at the top of the Radiance 100 sequence. He was no longer sequence number 39 of the Radiance 100 and had wasted 2 years. However, if Lu Jie's Insect Queen recovered, it was not impossible for it to catch up. These 2 years, which seemed to have been wasted, were not in vain. In the past 2 years, his strength had not increased at all. However, the growth in his state of mind was something that he could never achieve in the past. Lu Jie looked at Lin Yuan's expression and said calmly, "Now, according to the oath, I am already your squire or guardian knight. I want to beg you to help me restore the Insect Queen, but I have nothing to repay you. I only have myself. If you grant me a new life, my future will be in your hands." Upon seeing Lu Jie's calm expression, Lin Yuan looked at him for a long time and asked, "Is it worth it to sacrifice the rest of your life?" Lu Jie thought of what the Bamboo Monarch had said back then. It required extreme spirit chi without any medicinal properties to promote the Insect Queen's slow recovery. This was something that the Bamboo Monarch could not do. Something that even a Class 5 Creation Master couldn't do was the same as giving Lu Jie a death sentence. It wasn't that Lu Jie hadn't looked for other Creation Masters over the years, but he hadn't found anything. Slowly he lost all hope. However, for some reason, the spirit chi released by the young man in front of him was able to help the Insect Queen recover. This was Lu Jie's only chance. If one wanted to talk about whether it was worth it or not, a spirit chi professional would have to face many choices from the start of choosing an occupation. Every choice would lead to a completely different path in the future. Lu Jie was also constantly making choices. He chose the Source-type life form, the Insect Queen, chose to strive for the Radiance 100 sequence, chose to protect Cold Frost City, and chose to become Lin Yuan's retainer knight. Lu Jie didn't dare to say that every choice he made was absolutely perfect, or the best one. However, Lu Jie did not regret his choice. Lu Jie suddenly smiled, and a trace of foolishness appeared on his determined face. It is worth it. The days when he couldn't become a spirit chi professional made him feel like a walking corpse. And now, the light was so dazzling that Lu Jie couldn't look away no matter what. Lin Yuan extended his hand solemnly. 2 pairs of hands held together. Although the 2 of them did not use much strength, their grip was quite firm. Lin Yuan said as he pulled Lu Jie up. Since you've chosen to become my retainer knight, I'll carry out my duties. In a few days, I'll help you with the initial treatment for your insect queen. The rune oath had imperceptibly bound Lu Jie to himself. Since Lu Jie had made an oath, Lin Yuan could accept Lu Jie's allegiance with a clear conscience. He didn't even need to take any responsibility. However, Lin Yuan was clearly not such a person. After accepting Lu Jie's allegiance, the first thing Lin Yuan felt was that his responsibilities had increased. Lu Jie was a former Radiance 100 sequence member, so no one would believe that he was his retainer. Upon hearing that, the silly smile on Lu Jie's face grew wider. Lu Jie knew that he was loyal to the right person. Actually, I wouldn't have rejected you if you had asked me to heal your insect queen. For the sake of Frost City, Lu Jie was willing to sacrifice everything he had, his glory, and his dreams to protect it. Lin Yuan rather admired such a person. Therefore, from the moment Lin Yuan knew Lu Jie's identity, he had the thought of helping Lu Jie heal the insect queen. However, he did not expect Lu Jie to be so straightforward and choose to become his retainer knight. Who doesn't try their best to walk to the end of their lives? Before, I was powerless and couldn't see hope, so I could only muddle through life. But now that hope has appeared, how can I not try my best to grasp it? From today onwards, I will be young master's sword and shield. Upon hearing Lu Jie address him as young master, Lin Yuan hurriedly replied, Yes, young master. Just call me Lin Yuan. Are you going to follow me back to the Xia region? My home is not in Redbud City. Lu Jie pondered for a moment and said, Lin Yuan, why don't I go to the Xia region to look for you after 3 days? I still have something to do during these 2 days. For the past 2 years, Lu Jie's life had been muddled and hopeless. However, he had made a lot of money in the past 2 years. Lu Jie used this sum of money to provide for over a dozen children and set up an education savings package for them on Star Web. The education savings package included the expenses for school and face selection. Lu Jie's Star Web card still had the 120 Radiance dollars that Lin Yuan had just transferred over. This money was enough for Lu Jie to save the final sum of money for his education savings. Lin Yuan did not ask what Lu Jie was going to do. If Lin Yuan knew what Lu Jie was going to do, he would only feel admiration. However, Lin Yuan would not do the same. This might be due to his worldview, choices, and trade-offs. Lin Yuan opened the box with the 2 retainer crests. Lin Yuan had just obtained this box a few hours ago. Lin Yuan would never have thought that he would have to give away one of the 2 newly obtained retainer crests in just a few hours. After looking at the retainer crests that Lin Yuan handed over, Lu Jie clenched them in his hand and wore them on his left chest. Obtaining this retainer crests was unexpected for Lu Jie, but it was also within his expectations. Lu Jie had sworn an oath with a willpower rune, and did not need the protection of the Radiance Federation system. Chapter 76. 2 years ago, let alone Class 2 Creation Masters, Lu Jie had even seen plenty of Class 3 Creation Masters. He had even seen one of the 3 Class 5 Creation Masters, the Bamboo Monarch. But now, when he wore the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest on his left chest, Lu Jie felt as though it was emitting heat. It was so heavy that his heart was boiling. When he looked at the small shield beside the 2 stars on the crest, Lu Jie knew his responsibility for the rest of his life. After parting with Lu Jie, Lin Yuan immediately returned to the Xia region. He was truly a little worried about Chimey being at home alone. Even if Chimey was a bronze fae, Lin Yuan was still afraid that something might happen to it at home. Ever since Lin Yuan had brought Chimey home, this should be the longest period of time that he had been away from Chimey. Lin Yuan returned to the Fei store. When he opened the door, Chimey immediately flew onto Lin Yuan's shoulder when it heard the sound. It then jumped onto Lin Yuan's ear and rubbed its little head against Lin Yuan's hair to express its longing. After not seeing Lin Yuan for such a long time, Chimey missed him terribly. It wasn't even in the mood for a live broadcast, causing Chimey's fans to riot. Chimey had a lot of fans now, and none of the Starweb's music hosts could compete with it. Before Lin Yuan could comfort Chimey, he suddenly saw the shelves in the room collapsing on the ground in a mess. The wooden parts were broken into pieces, and the iron parts were twisted beyond recognition. Previously, Red Thorn was more than half a meter tall. When it evolved to the elite rank, it directly jumped to 1.5 meters. This was just the height of the mouth of Relinquish. At that moment, the mouth of Relinquish was like a sphere filled with wrinkles and thorns. The thorns had several mouths, and the dense teeth were exposed. When the rose-shaped digestive cavity had evolved to normal, it had already undergone a metamorphosis. Now it had grown another 8 organs that were similar to the previous 2 organs, forming a circle of 10. They shrouded the outer layer of the mouth of Relinquish. The roses on the top were the size of a wash basin and looked very demonic. Lin Yuan sensed the changes in the source seed's data. If these 10 flowers were to attack, each flower would instantly spray nearly 5 kilograms of acid. The acid's intensity could even corrode gravel and soil. As for the thorny vines that Red Thorn had previously enhanced, the inner vines were now covered with 5-centimeter-long spikes. There were a total of 16 of them, and they could reach up to 4 meters. When it moved, it could probably tear the opponent into pieces in an instant. Vines up to 6 meters long grew out from the periphery. These vines were the newly grown parts. It didn't seem to be as lethal as the vines in the inner layer. The emerald green vines were covered with 3-centimeter-long barbs. Furthermore, these vines could grow in length during battle. Looking at Red Thorn's new elite skill, Shatter Armor Rip, Lin Yuan felt that Red Thorn had really evolved into a Fey with extremely powerful attacks. Whether it was the 3-centimeter-long spiky barbs on the outer layer of the vines, or the 5-centimeter-long spiky barbs on the inner layer of the vines. When it was brandished, it would have the armor-shattering effect. Even a defense-type Fey would have its flesh lacerated after a few whips. Not to mention that the spikes were barbed in shape. When the vines pulled, they would tear off a piece of flesh. After evolving to elite grade, the source seed Red Thorn already had intelligence. After forming a blood contract with Lin Yuan, Red Thorn had a blood-related closeness to Lin Yuan. Red Thorn extended a vine from the inner layer. This vine was similar to the other vines in the inner layer, but it didn't have spikes. When this vine wrapped around Lin Yuan's wrist, Lin Yuan could clearly feel Red Thorn's intimate emotions. It felt like it was acting coquettishly. Lin Yuan could vaguely feel Red Thorn's thoughts. It felt like when Red Thorn evolved to elite grade and gained intelligence, it had specially evolved a vine, so that it could get closer to him. When Red Thorn felt Lin Yuan by its side, it carried a kind of joyful emotion. This kind of emotion quickly infected Lin Yuan. When looking at Red Thorn, Genius, Chimey, and Morbius on his wrist, Lin Yuan felt especially fulfilled. There wasn't any trace of fear in front of the unknown. The more he looked forward to it, the more he had to travel through hardships. After Lin Yuan helped Red Thorn prepare the bronze alien insect flesh, he went on the star web. Lin Yuan was rather apologetic for standing Big Sister Xian up. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt rather regretful that he didn't pick up anything valuable. Right now, Lin Yuan was planning to purchase some inferior energy ores in bulk. Firstly, after nurturing several batches of spirit siphon goldfish, including the 5 fortune ranches, the eggs produced by the female spirit siphon goldfish were almost used up. Secondly, Lin Yuan needed a large amount of pure spirit qi to heal the insect queen. In fact, Lin Yuan didn't think that the insect queen's injuries were difficult to heal. He just needed to provide a large amount of pure spirit qi to keep up with the insect queen's consumption. Given the insect queen's recovery ability, if there was a sufficient supply of spirit qi, it would only need a short period of time to recover. This time, Lin Yuan didn't send a message to Big Sister Xian. Instead, he went to her store. When Lin Yuan arrived at Big Sister Xian's store, he saw that she was inside and quickly went forward. Big Sister Xian, I have been busy for the past 2 days, so I didn't make it to the appointment yesterday to pick the phase with damaged roots. Zhou Jiesin was looking at the bills in the store, and when she saw Lin Yuan, she quickly stood up. Zhou Jiesin had thought about Lin Yuan's absence yesterday. After sending a message to Lin Yuan, she didn't receive any response. After weighing the pros and cons, Zhou Jiesin hardened her heart and only sold a portion of the phase that had arrived yesterday. She kept the best ones. She was thinking that when Lin Yuan came over, there would still be goods for Lin Yuan to pick. Zhou Jiesin was a person who dared to think and act. Since she was certain that Lin Yuan had a creation master backing him, before Lin Yuan clearly expressed his attitude, Zhou Jiesin would do everything that needed to be done. When she was looking at the bills, Zhou Jiesin was rather absent-minded. Now that Lin Yuan came to the store, Zhou Jiesin's heart was completely at ease. When she stood up and didn't look, Zhou Jiesin immediately saw the Class 2 Creation Master crest that Lin Yuan was wearing. Zhou Jiesin had a rather good understanding of Creation Masters. Lin Yuan was such a young Class 2 Creation Master, and it was obvious that there was a problem. Zhou Jiesin couldn't even imagine that Lin Yuan had the resources behind him. Even if Lin Yuan didn't have any resources behind him, a young Class 2 Creation Master like him was worth Zhou Jiesin trying her best to rope him in. Chapter 77. Zhou Jiesin's words astonished Lin Yuan. It was extremely difficult to store a severely injured Fei. Once the Fei died, the price would drop by more than 10%. Zhou Jiesin wouldn't normally do business like this. If that was the case, it would be a loss for her to sell severely injured Feis. There shouldn't be any creation masters in Zhou Jiesin's store. Even if there were creation masters, it would be a loss to waste a creation master's time to sustain a severely injured Fei. It was obvious that Zhou Jiesin was doing this because of him. Regardless of the reason, Lin Yuan had to accept this favor. Then I shall thank Big Sister Xian for leaving behind a few severely injured Feis for me. After Morbius evolved to bronze grade, Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone wasn't small anymore. Coupled with the pure land of bliss and the high concentration of spirit qi, it was extremely suitable for healing Feis with damaged roots. The price of a Fei with damaged roots was only a little higher than the spiritual ingredient itself. It was unknown how much lower it was than a healthy Fei. If Lin Yuan were to purchase such Feis, treat them and sell them, the money he could earn would be far more than what he could earn now. Lin Yuan didn't just need to nurture Red Thorn. He also needed a large amount of dimensional lifeform flesh. He also needed to make more preparations for the Jasmine Lily's evolution to legend. Lin Yuan had an appointment with the violent-tempered woman, and he would be able to obtain the revival soil in a few days. Lin Yuan still didn't have the 2 mahogany tree cores and 1 liter of grasswood spring water. He might be able to buy the grasswood spring water on the market, but 1 liter of grasswood spring water was rather expensive. Therefore, the accumulation of resources was still Lin Yuan's top priority. This was because the accumulation of resources was also equivalent to an increase in strength. When Zhou Jiesin heard Lin Yuan expressing his gratitude, the smile on her face grew even brighter. It wasn't that Zhou Jiesin hadn't taken some measures to attract customers before. However, if these measures were to be effective, the customers would have to accept the favor. If no matter how much you did, the customers wouldn't even bother about it, and it would be useless. Come, follow me to the warehouse to take a look at the 3 severely injured Feis that I left behind. They are the best items in this batch of goods. After Zhou Jiesin spoke to Lin Yuan, she instructed the shop assistant, who was busy in the store, and led Lin Yuan to the warehouse. The shop assistant in Zhou Jiesin's shop was a chubby girl who loved to laugh. The last time Lin Yuan had visited the store, he hadn't seen him. This time he had seen him in person. The young shop assistant also looked at Lin Yuan a few times. The staff of the Fei and Spiritual Ingredient Store had naturally noticed the Class 2 Creation Master emblem hanging on Lin Yuan's chest. Due to the instinctive reverence for Creation Masters, the shop assistant didn't dare to greet Lin Yuan despite his lively personality. Lin Yuan followed Zhou Jiesin to the warehouse. Lin Yuan could feel that although Zhou Jiesin had been talking to him, there seemed to be something she wanted to ask, but could not bring herself to ask. Lin Yuan did not point it out. The relationship between him and Zhou Jiesin was just a client. If Zhou Jiesin really wanted to ask him for help, he could help her with her business matters. But the premise was that Zhou Jiesin could afford it. If it was something else, Lin Yuan would still reject it. After all, he wasn't a goody two-shoes. After walking into the warehouse, Lin Yuan immediately saw a dying fei lying on the ground. It was an antelope. This is a sword-horn speed antelope, a rather good silver fei. The sword-horn speed antelope's sword horn is extremely long, and the sword-horn speed antelope is at silver X/elite. It is just a step away from gold. Therefore, the sword-horn speed antelope's flesh is an excellent choice, be it for feeding feis or for consumption. Zhou Jiesin introduced the sword-horn speed antelope. Zhou Jiesin had spent a lot of effort on this sword-horn speed antelope and had fed it plenty of bronze usnias. Otherwise, the sword-horn speed antelope might have already died. Lin Yuan walked over and looked at the sword-horn speed antelope. He extended his hand and placed it on the sword-horn speed antelope's horn. The sword-horn speed antelope struggled to lift its head and took a glance at Lin Yuan before lowering its head again. It was obvious that the sword-horn speed antelope was aware of its body's condition. With the intelligence of a silver fei, it was completely aware of its fate. The sword-horn speed antelope's life force was slowly slipping away, causing the sword-horn speed antelope to become weaker. Lin Yuan checked on the sword-horn speed antelope's condition and stood up. Lin Yuan wasn't sure of the limits of his healing ability, so he was planning to use this sword-horn speed antelope to do an experiment. Looking at the pure land of bliss in the spirit lock spatial zone, if he circulated his spirit chi with all his might, he would be able to recover the sword-horn speed antelope's injuries within an hour. Zhou Jiesin might already know that Lin Yuan was a Class 2 creation master, but out of habit, she still gave a detailed introduction of the sword-horn speed antelope's condition. This sword-horn speed antelope's injuries can't be seen on the surface, but its internal injuries are extremely severe. This sword-horn speed antelope suffered an intense impact, causing its internal organs to shift. In fact, 2 of its internal organs are even ruptured. Last night, I fed some bronze usnias to help the sword-horn speed antelope recover some energy, but from the looks of its current condition, this sword-horn speed antelope shouldn't be able to last for more than 5 hours. Lin Yuan had already checked on the sword-horn speed antelope's injuries, and after hearing Zhou Jiesin's explanation, he couldn't help but lament at Zhou Jiesin's business philosophy. For such a severely injured fei, as long as it was still alive, it was rare for a seller to take the initiative to explain the injuries and predict the time of death. For a sword-horn speed antelope that didn't have any visible injuries on its surface, other stores wouldn't clearly state that it would die within 5 hours. It might be the truth, but it would greatly reduce the fei's value. Lin Yuan admired Zhou Jiesin's business philosophy and honest attitude. Big Sister Xian, what is the price of this sword-horn speed antelope? A silver fei like the sword-horn speed antelope wouldn't be expensive when it was in an endangered state. No matter how good the sword-horn speed antelope's sword horn was, it wasn't considered a rare spiritual ingredient. The usage of this spiritual ingredient was to grind the horn, so there wasn't a requirement for the spiritual ingredient's appearance. The price of the sword-horn speed antelope's sword horn was comparable to the sword-horn speed antelope's over 70 kilograms of silver fei meat. The sword-horn speed antelope was a very light and delicate agility type fei. It had decent damage and was extremely easy to rear. Therefore, the sword-horn speed antelope was a rather popular fei. 100 radiance dollars will do. Zhou Jiesin spoke very straightforwardly. Lin Yuan calculated the price. If 100 radiance dollars were to buy a dead sword-horn speed antelope, it would be just right. For a sword-horn speed antelope in its current state, the price should be around 150 radiance dollars. Chapter 78. When Lin Yuan recalled how Zhou Jiesin looked like she had something to say along the way, he understood. After this transaction, Zhou Jiesin would probably say what she wanted to say. Lin Yuan looked at Zhou Jiesin and realized that she was also looking at him. Lin Yuan smiled and said, "All right." Zhou Jiesin was very happy to see Lin Yuan's expression. Her goodwill was already very obvious, and anyone smart would be able to guess the meaning behind her words. Now that Lin Yuan didn't reject it, it meant that there was a way for her to say what she wanted to say. Now that Lin Yuan didn't reject it, it meant that there was a way for her to say what she wanted to say. After looking at the sword horn-speed antelope, Zhou Jiesin pointed at the charred tree trunk beside the sword horn-speed antelope and said, "The next fei is this. The next fei is this." Lin Yuan looked over and saw that the pitch-black tree trunk was filled with scorch marks. Lin Yuan walked forward and used his hand to gently touch the scorch marks. He realized that the scorch marks would shatter and wither when he touched them. Lin Yuan's heart shuddered. This tree should have been burned by the Abyss Dimensional Rift's devil flames. The marks on the tree trunk were very similar to the Abyss Flames' withering characteristics. The tree trunk was bare and had nothing. The roots at the bottom of the tree trunk were no more than half a meter long, and they were all severed. There was also a hole on the tree trunk, and it was obvious that the tree core had been dug out. However, Lin Yuan could still faintly feel the sparse vitality contained within the tree. Only high-grade wood-type spirit plants would be able to grow a tree core, and the weakest spirit plant would be at least silver. This proved that this tree that had been burned by the Abyss Flames was at least a silver life form. However, Lin Yuan felt that even without the tree core, it was still able to preserve a trace of vitality within the tree's body for such a long time. This proved that this spirit plant was extraordinary and was most likely a gold spirit plant. Lin Yuan used true data to check on the tree, and the data caused his body to tremble. Fei name: Cinnabar sweet osmanthus. Fei species: Osmanthus genus/Osmanthus family. Fei grade: Gold 4 out of 10. Fei type: Wood. Fei quality: Flawless abilities. Frowny face. Osmanthus fragrance: The osmanthus fragrance can refresh the mind and eliminate fatigue. Falling flowers: Flowers fall all year round, and the falling flowers can quickly remove the poison in the target's body. Cleansing flower bud: Shake off a flower bud that hasn't bloomed yet. The nectar in the flower bud can heal mental injuries. Osmanthus spirit: The aura of fortune and nobility contained in the osmanthus flowers can resist and eliminate curse damage and curse imprints. Exclusive skill: Frowny face poison repellent. Can effectively remove all kinds of poisons that are difficult to remove and dispel curse-type mental poisons. At this time, Zhou Jiesin's voice sounded again. This fei has been appraised to be a gold spirit plant. It should be an osmanthus species. Zhou Jiesin didn't know much about this spiritual plant. It was just that when he used his own connections to purchase the goods, he found out that this was a gold osmanthus. If it wasn't a gold fei or an osmanthus flower, Zhou Jiesin might not have left it behind. Of course, if this gold rank osmanthus wasn't damaged like this, or even if it was damaged like this, as long as there was a tree core, Zhou Jiesin wouldn't be able to afford it. Osmanthus was one of the 10 famous flowers since ancient times. After the spirit chi awakening, there weren't any weaklings among the 10 famous flowers. Furthermore, osmanthus was an auspicious and noble flower. Therefore, the osmanthus's price had always been at the top of the plant type phase. Furthermore, the osmanthus's flower itself was a high-grade spiritual ingredient, and also an ingredient. This made the osmanthus's price even more outrageous. Humans had always been concerned about auspiciousness. When auspiciousness and beauty were combined, the price would definitely be doubled. If auspiciousness and beauty had powerful effects, they would be regarded as treasures. The osmanthus was such an existence. However, this osmanthus that she had brought back was almost charred, and it could only be sold for the thin layer of wood that wrapped the tree core. It could be used as a gold plant spiritual ingredient. However, it was only an ordinary spiritual ingredient because the osmanthus's effects were all on the flowers and leaves, not on the wood of the tree trunk. However, Zhou Jiesin didn't know that Lin Yuan was thinking differently from her. This wasn't an ordinary osmanthus, but a cinnabar sweet osmanthus. Furthermore, it was a cinnabar sweet osmanthus that perfectly matched its abilities and exclusive skill. The exclusive skill enhanced the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus's 4 abilities. Furthermore, the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus's 4 abilities could perfectly display the exclusive skill's effects. This Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus was simply the nemesis of poison type and evil beings. Not only could it remove all kinds of poison, but it could also cure and remove spirit-type poisons. The Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus had ways to remove curse-type poisons and incantation imprints that were the hardest to remove. It was truly an ultimate treasure, and could be said to be the model of a pure healing-type fae. Excluding the abilities and exclusive skill, the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus was also a famous species among osmanthus. Thousands of 4-petal osmanthus flowers hung on the branches, and they were even more dazzling than the red clouds in the evening sky. Such an auspicious fae was truly in a miserable state now. This Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus might be useless in other people's hands, and could only be used as a spiritual ingredient. However, if it was planted beside Lin Yuan's Pure Land of Bliss in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, this Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus would definitely have a new life in the future. It would bloom into a tree that was flourishing on the branches. Lin Yuan had to obtain the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus. He might not be able to sign a contract with the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus, but if he planted it in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, he would be able to use the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus flowers to remove the poison to a certain extent. The jasmine lily might be able to heal injuries, but it didn't have the effect of removing poison. Lin Yuan might not be able to use the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus ability in battle, but it could be used when nurturing and healing phase. Lin Yuan might not be able to use the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus ability in battle, but it could be used when nurturing and healing phase. If he were to miss out on this Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus, he would need to spend 1,000 times the price to purchase another one. Take a gold dragon species fae that cost 80 radiance dollars for a single drop of blood. The Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus's transaction price in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion was even higher than the gold dragon species fae. Big Sister Xian, what is your price for this charred fae? Lin Yuan looked at the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus. He even wanted to release spiritual power into the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus body. However, Lin Yuan endured it. It was impossible that no creation master had seen such a fae before. For a gold fae like the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus, even a Class 4 creation master might take it to see if it was worth healing. Lin Yuan was only a Class 2 creation master, and if Zhou Jiesin saw him healing the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus here, it wouldn't be a good thing for him. Chapter 79. After speaking, Zhou Jiesin went to the table and rummaged through the brocade boxes. Most of the brocade boxes on the table were rare spiritual ingredients. These rare spiritual materials were Zhou Jiesin's precious stock. Zhou Jiesin said as she rummaged through them. While rummaging, Zhou Jiesin said, "The third fae that grew with the Osmanthus fae is still alive, but I can't tell what it is. It is so dry, and it might lose its vitality in a short while." After searching for a long time, Zhou Jiesin took out a brocade box and handed it to Lin Yuan. When handing it to Lin Yuan, Zhou Jiesin laughed heartily. "I will give you 300 radiance dollars for the previous Osmanthus fae. As for the item in this brocade box, Big Sister Xian will treat it as a gift." Zhou Jiesin couldn't tell what the item in the brocade box was. However, it had the wave of a gold fae during the inspection, so it should be considered a good item. However, Zhou Jiesin didn't know what it was used for. When she had purchased the Osmanthus fae, someone had given it to her, so she might as well give it to Lin Yuan as a favor. Lin Yuan's mind was on the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus, so he didn't pay attention to the fae that Zhou Jiesin had given him. However, when he looked at it now, he was instantly stunned. The Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus was no longer able to distract Lin Yuan. Under True Data's observation, the shriveled item in the box that looked like a layer of burnt black film was actually a treasure that could increase one's mental strength. Fae name: Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia, Fae species, reed species / Aphoxanthaceae, Fae grade, gold 8 out of 10, Fae type, grass Fae quality. Flawless. The Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia was a kind of companion Fae. It only grew on plants that were filled with auspicious and holy aura. As a companion Fae, It was extremely rare. Even in the Rare Life Form Pavilion's annual large-scale auction, the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia would be the finale item. The Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia was born with the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus, hence its name. If it was accompanied by other flowers that had rich luster, the name would also change. As a member of the Aphoxanthaceae, the haworthia inherited the characteristics of the Aphoxanthaceae. Rather than saying that the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia was a fae, it was better to say that it was a spiritual ingredient that could evolve and grow. The Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia did not have any skills or exclusive skills, and it was highly toxic. The Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia would only bear fruit once every few years at the platinum level. Each time, it would produce 3 to 5 crystal-like fruits. It had always been said that it was extremely difficult to heal a spirit chi professional's spiritual energy injuries. The reason why it could not be healed was that the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia could heal the injured spiritual energy to a certain extent. It was also one of the few holy items in this world that could heal mental injuries. Even if one's mental strength was not damaged, eating the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia would have a certain effect. The effect was to stimulate the brain and increase one's spiritual power. The Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia was truly a good item for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's spiritual energy had been pitifully weak ever since he had contracted Morbius. Genius and Chimey had also been contracted by Lin Yuan when fays were not considered. After contracting Genius and Chimey, Lin Yuan had been unconscious for several days. If he could increase his spiritual energy, it would be a metamorphosis for him. Even if the increase in spiritual energy could not allow him to contract more fays, it could still make his mind clearer. If his spiritual energy increased enough, it wasn't impossible for Lin Yuan to contract a new fae in the future. As compared to the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus, the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia was undoubtedly more pleasant to Lin Yuan. However, if the Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia wanted to grow, it had to grow on the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus. At this moment, Lin Yuan wanted to quickly purchase the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus and Cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia and bring them back to cultivate for healing. Big Sister Exion, I want these 2 fays. In addition to the sword horn speed antelope, I will transfer the money together. Soon enough, Lin Yuan and Zhou Jiesin completed the transfer. Zhou Jiesin used Ostrich Logistics' fay storage box and immediately arranged for the delivery of the 3 dying fays in front of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was currently very grateful to Zhou Jiesin. For Zhou Jiesin to help him keep these 3 fays, it was undoubtedly the same as giving him an opportunity. When Lin Yuan saw that Zhou Jiesin wanted to speak, but had been observing his expression, he took the initiative to speak. Big Sister Exion, I am also considered an old customer. If you have anything to say, just say it. Lin Yuan might have guessed what Zhou Jiesin was going to say, but before Zhou Jiesin said it, Lin Yuan couldn't be certain. Zhou Jiesin didn't expect that Lin Yuan would actually take the initiative to mention it before she could speak. She was instantly overjoyed. If Lin Yuan didn't wish to help, he wouldn't have spoken first. Since he had spoken, there should be a way. Zhou Jiesin had been in the business world for several years, and when Lin Yuan said that they were old customers, Zhou Jiesin heard it clearly. When Lin Yuan mentioned customers, it meant that Lin Yuan was willing to help her with her business. He was also telling her that he might not be able to help with other matters. Zhou Jiesin didn't need Lin Yuan's help with anything else, and she just hoped to be able to purchase goods from Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan, Big Sister Exion knows that you also have a store that sells rare fays. I wonder if Big Sister Exion can purchase goods from your store. Lin Yuan blinked his eyes. It seemed like he had guessed correctly. As expected, it was about purchasing goods. The fays sold in his store might be evolved from common fays, like the usnias that weren't even normal grade, or the normal grade spirit siphon goldfish. These fays might be common in the low-grade market, but the elite spirit siphon goldfish and bronze usnias were rarely circulated in the market. Even though Zhou Jiesin had managed the Star Web store for so many years, she had her own connections. It was possible to obtain 1 or 2 elite spirit siphon goldfish and 1 or 2 pots of bronze usnias, but it was impossible to obtain them in bulk. On average, Lin Yuan would be able to produce 100 spirit siphon goldfish every 3 days. After a period of time, another batch of 5 fortune ranchu appeared on the market. If Lin Yuan wanted to increase his spirit chi occupation's rank, he would need to evolve a large number of bronze usnias. Therefore, it didn't matter if he bought for Zhou Jiesin. When Zhou Jiesin saw Lin Yuan's pondering expression, she quickly replied, "Lin Yuan, Big Sister Xin isn't trying to obtain goods from you cheaply. Big Sister Xin can increase the price by 3% from your store's retail price. To tell you the truth, my store is already at its limit, without a 3-star creation master. Big Sister Xin wishes to purchase some rare phase from you, and see if it can become a 4-star store by the end of the year." Zhou Jiesin's words were very sincere. He told Lin Yuan about his difficulties, and also showed his cooperative attitude. Lin Yuan listened to Zhou Jiesin's words and smiled. Chapter 80. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zhou Jiesin was pleasantly surprised. Previously, Zhou Jiesin thought that it would be great if she could get 20 spirit siphon goldfish and around 10 pots of bronze usnias. She didn't expect for Lin Yuan to give her goods that exceeded her expectations by so many times. With these resources, it would no longer be an old store that could only rely on the quality of spiritual ingredients to attract customers. With these rare items, she just had to limit the supply, and the store's reputation would quickly improve. She would also need to organize some activities to decline customers. With such a trump card, it wasn't impossible for the store to become a Class 4 store by the end of the year. Her dream of many years had never been realized. Now that Lin Yuan's words had given her the opportunity to realize it, the calm Zhou Jiesin didn't know what to do. Zhou Jiesin was extremely glad that she had made the decision earlier. If she hadn't expressed goodwill to this youth, he wouldn't have treated her like this. The items in this youth's hands would be a premium of 10% for other stores that wanted to raise their stars. Zhou Jiesin had long heard of the phase in Lin Yuan's store. The quality was ridiculously good, and the price wasn't expensive either. Every time the goods were on the shelves, they would be sold out in less than 3 minutes. Apart from that, Lin Yuan was a Class 2 creation master. Just this point alone was enough for Zhou Jiesin to rope him in. However, Lin Yuan's straightforward method made Zhou Jiesin feel that apart from the relationship of benefits, they were more like friends. "Lin Yuan, Big Sister Xin shall thank you in advance. In the future, when you purchase spiritual ingredients from Big Sister Xion's store, Big Sister Xion will sell them to you at the stock price. Or if you need any spiritual ingredients that you can't find, I can help you publish a purchase information and ask around." Zhou Jiesin had now completely opened up her connections and channels to Lin Yuan. In fact, Zhou Jiesin understood that her connections and channels might not be considered much for a Class 2 creation master. However, this was for most of the veteran Class 2 creation masters. Lin Yuan was a newbie that had just become a Class 2 creation master. He might have the ability, but he was still respected. However, he didn't have many connections and channels. From now on, Zhou Jiesin would be the first channel that Lin Yuan had accumulated. "Big Sister Xion, if you want to charge to a 4-star store, I can provide you with 20 Elite 5 Fortune Ranches and 20 pots of silver usnias next month." If Zhou Jiesin could evolve into a Class 4 store with his connections, it would also be helpful to him. Therefore, Lin Yuan didn't mind helping Zhou Jiesin at this crucial juncture, so that she could improve further. In this way, Zhou Jiesin's connection would be of great help to him. When Zhou Jiesin heard Lin Yuan's words, she wasn't just happy. She was even more shocked. Zhou Jiesin was now certain that Lin Yuan had a veteran Class 3 creation master backing him. He might not just be a Class 3 creation master. He might even be a Class 4 creation master. In the Radiance Federation, if Class 5 creation masters didn't make a move, Class 4 creation masters were already at the level of heavenly protection. Class 4 creation masters were existences that Zhou Jiesin couldn't even look up to in the past. Now, Zhou Jiesin knew that she had underestimated how powerful Lin Yuan's background was. She had sold the 5 fortune ranches to Lin Yuan, because she wanted to help the female 5 fortune ranchess lay eggs and nurture the female 5 fortune ranchess to elite grade in a short month. Such means weren't something an ordinary Class 3 creation master could achieve. Furthermore, there were 20 pots of silver usnias. The usnias were phase that couldn't even reach normal from beginner, and it was much harder to evolve to silver than other phase. Without needing the 25 fortune ranches, just the impact of these 20 pots of silver usnias was enough for her store to strive for Class 4. Right now, what Zhou Jiesin had to do was to gather the price for these 25 fortune ranches and 20 pots of silver usnias within this month. Zhou Jiesin had to use her usual money to buy plenty of goods. Now that she thought about it, taking out so much money was truly a challenge that Zhou Jiesin had to face for this month. After completing the transaction with Zhou Jiesin, Lin Yuan ordered another 25,000 caddies of inferior energy ores from Zhou Jiesin. Zhou Jiesin had sold the 25,000 caddies of inferior energy ores to Lin Yuan at the purchase price. This allowed Lin Yuan to save close to half of the money, and it was obvious how profitable spiritual ingredient transactions were. After exiting the Star Web, Ostrich Logistics Express delivery arrived in a short moment. Lin Yuan sprinkled a large amount of inferior energy ores into the spirit pool, allowing a portion of the spirit pool to decompose and leave behind a thick layer at the bottom. Immediately after, Lin Yuan placed the sword horn speed antelope, Cinnabar sweet osmanthus, and Cinnabar osmanthus haworthia phase storage boxes into the spirit lock spatial zone, which was beside the pure land of bliss. He then took the initiative to open the sword horn speed antelope's box. Dense spirit chi seeped into the sword horn speed antelope's body through its skin and into its damaged internal organs. It helped the sword horn speed antelope recover its damaged internal organs. Lin Yuan circulated spirit chi into the sword horn speed antelope's body in a soothing manner and helped it recover its injuries. The sword horn speed antelope looked at Lin Yuan with grateful eyes. It used its cheek to rub against Lin Yuan's hand and lay on the pure land of bliss to rest under Lin Yuan's arrangement. The sword horn speed antelope's body was very small, and it only took up a small space on the pure land of bliss. Its curled-up body quickly fell asleep, and the surrounding spirit chi slowly entered the sword horn speed antelope's body. The sword horn speed antelope slowly recovered its injuries. Next, Lin Yuan was going to be busy with a huge project. After opening the 2 gold phase storage boxes, Lin Yuan spent a lot of effort to plant the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus that was almost charred at the side of the pure land of bliss. At the same time, he carefully placed the Cinnabar osmanthus haworthia at the creases of the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus trunk. He believed that in a short period of time, the Cinnabar osmanthus haworthia would take root on the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus. Lin Yuan circulated his spirit chi with all his might and poured it into the Cinnabar sweet osmanthus. With Lin Yuan's hard work, the effects weren't obvious even on the pure land of bliss in the spirit lock spatial zone. The Cinnabar sweet osmanthus was indeed a gold fey. With Lin Yuan's D-rank spirit chi professional's spiritual power, it was still rather difficult for him to heal a gold fey. Lin Yuan felt the spirit chi content in his body. After these few days of hard work and constant evolution of phase, Lin Yuan's spirit chi content was already more than half of a D-rank spirit chi professional's energy value to that of a C-rank spirit chi professional's. Lin Yuan immediately purchased a large number of usnias. For the remaining time, Lin Yuan was planning to become a C-rank spirit chi professional first. At this moment, Lin Yuan was back to his previous state of complete focus. He was enhancing phase day and night. 3 days passed by quickly. Lin Yuan's spirit chi was one step closer to becoming a C-rank spirit chi professional. Chapter 81. Lin Yuan looked at the time. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, Lin Yuan had focused on enhancing phase, and he could clearly feel the increase in spirit chi in his body. He looked at the bronze usnias in the house. Lin Yuan stood up, stretched and walked toward the door. He opened the door and saw Lu Jie standing there. At this moment, Lu Jie was different from before. His temperament had changed significantly. His eyes were filled with vigor and vitality. Humans had to have a goal in life. Even if they did not have a goal, they should have a direction. The new Wuxia had both a goal and a direction. Come, enter the house. Did things go smoothly for the past 3 days? Wuxia nodded. I have settled all the things I needed to do. I will only listen to young master's instructions from now on. Lin Yuan did not correct Wuxia's address this time. 100 years after the spirit qi awakening, retainers were considered a new relationship between humans. Wuxia was only following the etiquette of a retainer, so there was no need for Lin Yuan to correct him again and again. Lin Yuan led Wuxia into the house. Chimey and Genius immediately ran to Lin Yuan's shoulder and looked at Wuxia curiously. Red Thorn, which was eating at the side, also sensed that a stranger had entered the house. It placed the thornless vine that Red Thorn had evolved on Lin Yuan. It was like a warning. As long as Lin Yuan gave the order, Red Thorn's vines would immediately grow and cover Wuxia. Wuxia looked at Genius and Chimey on Lin Yuan, as well as Red Thorn behind Lin Yuan. He sighed and envied them. Genius was a kitten with 2 tails and soft fur that was no longer than the length of a small arm. Chimey was only the size of half a fist, and it was a small bird with azure blue feathers with gorgeous cloud patterns. No matter who saw these 2 little fellows, they could not be compared to housekeeping pets like the 100 Questions beast or the songstress bird that could only sing. In addition, Red Thorn's sinister appearance contained killing intent everywhere. Wuxia knew that it was a fae with extreme lethality. Seeing Lin Yuan and the 3 fays together intimately, Wuxia could not help but think of his source-type insect queen. He knew that Lin Yuan could heal it. However, before the insect queen could fully recover, Wuxia could not help but feel a stabbing pain in his heart when he thought of his insect queen that had already turned into a cocoon. Lin Yuan poured a glass of water for Wuxia and explained Wuxia's identity to Genius, Chimey, and Red Thorn. Only then did Red Thorn settle down and continue eating to accumulate energy for its evolution. What do you plan to do in the future? If I don't have any arrangements for you. Lin Yuan placed the teacup on the table next to Wuxia. Then, he sat on the chair and drank the water in his teacup. Lin Yuan's words made Wuxia frown at once. He pondered over Lin Yuan's question. A retainer's responsibility was to follow by the Creation Master's side. They were the Creation Master's shield, and also the Creation Master's sword. Everything was done according to the Creation Master's instructions. Now that Lin Yuan had asked him about his future plans, he really did not know how to answer. Wuxia's original plan was to listen to Lin Yuan's instructions and accept his orders. Upon seeing Wuxia pondering, Lin Yuan continued. You must be very indignant about being removed from the Radiance 100 sequence number 39 because of your injuries these past 2 years, right? Lin Yuan's words pointed out the question that Wuxia had been avoiding all this time. The Radiance 100 was the glory that Wuxia had always pursued. Although Wuxia did not regret protecting Cold Frost City, if he was given another chance, he would still do it without any regard for his own safety. However, Wuxia was also indignant about being removed from the Radiance 100 sequence. Therefore, ever since Wuxia knew that his insect queen could not recover, he did not even participate in the Radiance 100 sequence. Given Wuxia's merits at that time, if he had participated, he might even have retained his Radiance 100 sequence ranking. At the very least, Wuxia would have been able to enter the Radiance 100's glory hall with honor. However, due to his pride and not wanting to be pitted, Wuxia had given up this opportunity. He had given up the Radiance 100 by default, and had worked hard to fight for the sequence. Was he indignant? Of course not. When Lin Yuan saw Wuxia's expression, he already knew what Wuxia was thinking, and he smiled slightly. I knew that you would be indignant. If you are indignant, why don't you go back and stand in the Radiance 100 sequence again? Lin Yuan's words were like a thunderclap that exploded on Wuxia's head. Wuxia had never dared to think like this. He had sworn with the willpower rune to become the retainer of the youth in front of him. From that moment on, Wuxia's thoughts had already excluded himself and considered everything from the perspective of a retainer. Now Lin Yuan's words gave Wuxia an indescribable feeling. First, can I still do it? Then, It was gratitude toward Lin Yuan that could not be drowned by the vast ocean. For a moment, he had tasted the coldness and warmth of the world. Lu Jie, who had known that his insect queen could not recover, gritted his teeth and endured it, but his eyes had turned red. His hot tears splashed into the glass of water and splashed. The water in the cup also had a salty taste. When Lin Yuan saw Lu Jie like this, he patted his shoulder and said, "Summon your insect queen. Summon your insect queen. Let me see how long it will take for your insect queen to recover. If it's fast, you might even be able to catch up with the Radiance 100 sequences, ranking at the end of the year. I think it won't be a problem for you to fight for a spot if you go." Lu Jie did not wipe away his hot tears. Instead, he raised his head and stared deeply at Lin Yuan, as though he wanted to remember something. After a long time, Lu Jie revealed a somewhat silly smile. He had shed tears before, so this smile made him look a little embarrassed. However, Lin Yuan knew that Lu Jie's smile was considered to have swept away the haze and truly obtained a new life. Lin Yuan could not help but recall Elder Ning's words. Creation masters did not only save Fays but also humans. Lu Jie summoned his insect queen and carefully held it in his hand. Lin Yuan placed his palm on the insect queen's flesh cocoon and circulated his spiritual power to quickly channel spirit qi into the flesh cocoon. The dark purple flesh cocoon was actually beating slowly like a heart. When it was beating, it emitted a soft lavender glow. At the same time, Lin Yuan could also feel that the insect queen had absorbed all the spirit qi that he had infused. After absorbing the pure spirit qi, as time went by, the insect queen grew stronger. After an hour, Lin Yuan could feel that the insect queen could already keep beating gently. It would not stop when his spirit qi was interrupted. This meant that the insect queen's active function, that represented vitality, had been activated. Chapter 82. Lin Yuan calculated for a moment. Although he could not accurately estimate the insect queen's recovery time, it was not a problem. However, based on his initial estimation, if he was in the Pure Land of Bliss within the Spirit Lock spatial zone, the Pure Land of Bliss wouldn't be able to withstand it. 2 months should be enough for him to make a full recovery. As the insect queen's contractor, Lu Jie could naturally sense the changes in the insect queen. It was only when the insect queen kept beating that Lu Jie's heart started to race. Lu Jie could sense that his insect queen had yet to regain its consciousness. However, he could feel that his body was gradually getting better. During this hour, Lu Jie did not even dare to move his hand that was holding the cocoon for fear of disturbing Lin Yuan. Lu Jie only asked carefully when Lin Yuan removed his hand from the cocoon, "How's my insect queen doing?" For a person who had just built up hope, he couldn't experience the blow of disappointment no matter what. Lin Yuan said straightforwardly, "Leave the insect queen with me, and it will recover in 2 months. You will also be able to catch up with this year's Radiance 100 sequence ranking." Lu Jie had known that Lin Yuan could heal the insect queen. However, he did not expect Lin Yuan to be able to heal the insect queen so quickly, which made him pleasantly surprised. Lu Jie carefully handed the insect queen, which was constantly beating, to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan held it in his hand and continued to circulate the spiritual power in his body, injecting pure spirit qi into the insect queen. "Young master, please tell me what to do during this period of time." Since Lin Yuan had been helping him heal the insect queen, Lu Jie didn't want to be an idle person. He wanted to help Lin Yuan fulfill his retainer duties. Lin Yuan did have something for Lu Jie to do. "Lu Jie, how much do you know about the capital?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Lu Jie answered, "I went to university in the royal city and lived in the royal city for 7 to 8 years. I'm very familiar with the royal city and can be considered a local. However, I haven't been in the royal city for 2 years, so I don't know how the royal city has changed." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded and asked, "What do you think? What do you think if I open a shop in the royal capital after the new year?" Lin Yuan also had his own ideas. After Chu Xi finished studying at the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Qi Academy, she would also have to go to the royal capital to take the exam. The royal capital was the Radiance Federation's center, and it occupied an area that was the size of 4 redbud cities. He might as well open a small store in the imperial capital as soon as possible and pave the way for Wuxia. During this period before the new year, Lin Yuan had to strengthen himself and raise his spirit qi occupation to C rank. At the same time, he upgraded all his phase to silver grade and above. These weren't considered too difficult. The most difficult thing was to evolve the jasmine lily from bronze to legend and transform it into a fantasy breed. Lin Yuan's second willpower rune was comprehended from extreme massacres and was very suitable for Red Thorn. However, he still had a way to upgrade Red Thorn from elite to epic. However, he knew that he could not upgrade Red Thorn from bronze to legend. Because Red Thorn was unable to absorb spiritual energy, it could only accumulate energy from its flesh. He was not a true creation master after all. He could only use his unique means to evolve phase, increase their quality, and heal their roots. Since Lin Yuan could heal the insect queen, Wuxia could not help but marvel at Lin Yuan's means and potential as a creation master. Now that Lin Yuan intended to develop in the royal capital, Wuxia raised both hands in approval. The royal capital was a place where only those with true ability could stand firm and gain a foothold. The resources and opportunities were far beyond redbud cities. Given Lin Yuan's talent and ability, it would be a waste if he did not develop in the royal capital. Young master, I feel that if you want to develop, it's best to go to the royal capital. Only after reaching the royal capital will you realize that the prosperity you see is far inferior to the royal capital. Lin Yuan fell into deep thought. Given Wuxia's experience, it would naturally not be wrong. Since he had already made up his mind, he might as well go ahead with it. This small store would forever be the warmest home for him and Wuxia. It was also the place where he started in this world. Lin Yuan was a person who dared to act on his ideas. He simply used his star web card to transfer 500 radiance dollars to Wuxia's account. Lin Yuan's current earning speed was far from what it used to be. Therefore, Lin Yuan would not be as cautious when it came to spending money. Go to the royal capital and help me find out about the situation. Then help me choose a suitable location to set up a store. If there is a good store for sale, contact me directly. The price of a store in the royal capital would definitely be far from what Redbud City could compare with. If he wanted to buy a good store in the royal capital, the price would definitely not be cheap. Lin Yuan had the confidence to say this because of the 1005 fortune ranches that were about to hatch. Another reason was that Ling Xiao had given him the plot of land in Redbud City after he became a Class 2 creation master. Rather than saying that the plot of land was a store, it would be better to say that it was a manor that was over 1,800 square meters. After Lin Yuan had picked the plot of land, the deed had already been handed over to him through Penguin Logistics 2 days ago. Lin Yuan could freely use this piece of land. If there was a suitable store in the royal capital, Lin Yuan could just sell off the manor in Redbud City. This way, he would be able to pay the initial payment for the store in the royal capital. In addition, given his earning speed after a period of time, especially after he became a C-rank spirit chi professional, his earnings would increase exponentially. With these trump cards, Lin Yuan spoke with extra confidence. Young master, do you have any requirements for the store? It would be best if it has a larger area. I don't have any other requirements. Lin Yuan believed that with his ability and his ability to mass-produce rare phase, it would not affect his development. Even if the store was slightly remote in the royal capital, it would not affect his development. Wuxia was originally prepared to carefully remember Lin Yuan's requirements. After all, this was the first mission that Lin Yuan had given him, so Wuxia was exceptionally serious. However, Wuxia did not expect Lin Yuan to only have this one request. After giving the instructions, Wuxia headed straight for the royal capital. Lin Yuan placed the insect queen's flesh cocoon on the pure land of bliss. Then he added plenty of inferior energy ores into the spirit pool. The consumption of inferior energy ores had been very fast in the past few days, so Lin Yuan had purchased a large batch of them. He had stored them in the spirit lock spatial zone in preparation for the spirit pool's usual supply. However, When he was purchasing the inferior energy ores this time, Lin Yuan already had the intention to buy low-grade energy ores. The quality-price ratio of inferior energy ores might be high for the spirit pool, but Lin Yuan needed time to add the energy ores. Now Lin Yuan was not as embarrassed as before. Times had changed, and low-grade energy ores were indeed more suitable for Lin Yuan than inferior energy ores. Lin Yuan enhanced phase for 7 days, day and night, and felt that he was just a step away from becoming a C-rank spirit chi professional. He was planning to go on the Star Web and order another batch of goods. Lin Yuan realized that he had received a message from Redbud City Lordess Ling Xiao. Chapter 83. As the city lord of Redbud City, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Ling Xiao had a myriad of affairs to attend to every day. All the big and small matters in Redbud City required Ling Xiao's decision. Even when Redbud City had given him the reward, Ling Xiao hadn't personally appeared. Instead, it had been one of Ling Xiao's subordinates. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this was already a great honor. And now, the city lord of Redbud City Ling Xiao had personally come looking for him. Ling Xiao. Lin Yuan, I am Redbud City's city lord Ling Xiao. 2 days later, someone will go to the Xia region to pick you up. At that time, someone will contact you directly. You might have to travel far, so make preparations in advance. When Lin Yuan received Ling Xiao's message, he rubbed his temples. This news came so suddenly that Lin Yuan did not know what it was. Ling Xiao's message didn't mention it either. Rather than saying that Ling Xiao had sent a question, it was more like a notification. Lin Yuan thought about the benefits that Elder Ning had mentioned before. So far, he had only obtained the Redbud City store and land. However, the benefits that Elder Ning mentioned were definitely not referring to the shop's land. In other words, this trip was very likely to be the benefit that even Elder Ning himself was envious of. If it was a long journey, he actually did not need to prepare much. If there was a need to prepare, it would be to stock up more energy ores in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, to prepare for the usual supply. Therefore, he bought another 5,000 caddies of low-grade energy ores, and 5,000 caddies of mid-grade energy ores from Big Sister Xian. The concentration of spiritual energy contained in low-grade energy ores was 5 times that of low-grade energy ores. The concentration of spirit energy contained in mid-grade energy ores was 5 times that of low-grade energy ores. Compared to low-grade energy ores, the price of low-grade energy ores was much higher. However, these basic materials were not considered a burden to him. When the 5,000 caddies of low-grade energy ores and mid-grade energy ores were transported into the Spirit Lock spatial zone, at that moment, Lin Yuan noticed that the sword-horn speed antelope was already standing upright on the Pure Land of Bliss. Lin Yuan went over to take a look and realized that the sword-horn speed antelope's injuries had completely recovered in the Pure Land of Bliss. When the sword-horn speed antelope saw Lin Yuan, it immediately ran over and stopped in front of him. She stuck out her tongue and licked Lin Yuan's finger intimately. It was thanking Lin Yuan for saving it from a seriously injured state. Lin Yuan took some bronze usnea vines and fed them to the sword-horn speed antelope. After its body recovered, the sword-horn speed antelope quickly ate the leaves on the bronze usnea's vine. It had a rare appetite. Lin Yuan looked at the sword-horn speed antelope, which was already a Silver X/Elite Fey, before it was injured. He was only 1 step away from the gold rank. Lin Yuan also sensed that the spirit chi concentration in his D-rank spirit chi professional's body had reached the maximum value. The misty spiritual energy in his body seemed as if it could turn into liquid spiritual energy at any time. When he had just become a D-rank spirit chi professional, there was only a trace of mist-like spirit chi in his body. But now, the spiritual energy in his body had completely transformed into mist. These mists collided with each other, but every time they were about to condense into a liquid state, they would disperse. Lin Yuan knew that he needed an opportunity. If he continued to evolve his bronze rank usneas like before, it would be like dripping water piercing through a stone. Right now, if he could directly evolve this silver-ranked sword horn speed antelope to gold-ranked, then it would be equivalent to a torrent. he could directly break through the barrier. Lin Yuan placed his hand on the satiated sword horn speed antelope's body and circulated the spiritual power in his body. He would use the spirit lock spatial zone's spirit chi, that was a few times denser than the outside world, to enhance the sword horn speed antelope. Lin Yuan wasn't sure how long it would take for a silver fei to evolve to gold grade. But in order not to delay the appointment with Ling Xiao 2 days later, Lin Yuan still set an alarm clock. After an unknown period of time, Lin Yuan's converted spirit chi had been cleansed by hundreds and thousands of times. With perseverance, he finally broke through the sword horn speed antelope's layer of obstruction. Just as it broke through the layer of obstruction, the sword horn speed antelope's body glowed with a resplendent golden luster. At this moment, the sword horn speed antelope's life essence was undergoing a metamorphosis. It had crossed from silver X to gold grade. The sword horn speed antelope's first transformation was the twin horns on its head. Previously, the sword horn speed antelope's sword horns were perfectly straight like a sharp sword. But now, not only did the sword horn speed antelope's right horn not continue to grow, but it was constantly shrinking. It was transforming towards the curved small horn. In just a short moment, the sword horn speed antelope's body had shrunk to 1/3 of its original size. The coffee-colored wool on its body was also constantly turning lighter, and finally turning into a khaki-colored milky white. The sword horn speed antelope was already nimble, but after evolving to gold grade, its spirituality mutation was even more thorough. Now it had actually turned into a cute little creature. However, after shrinking, the sword horn speed antelope's legs were even more slender and filled with strength. Its body had a streamlined burst of power and became even more nimble. The sword horn speed antelope's attack method wasn't just its basic ability, which was to use the sword horn to ram the opponent. It could also use the sword horn to slice the air and form a chi blade to attack the opponent from a distance. With the sword horn speed antelope's nimble movements, it was definitely a long-range assassin. Lin Yuan used true data to check on the gold-grade sword horn speed antelope. The cute little creature in front of him noticed that the name of the gold-grade fei had already changed. It was no longer called the sword horn speed antelope. Fei name: Wind speed rapid antelope fei species. Artiodactyl genus/antelope subfamily fei grade. Gold 1 out of 10. Fei type: Wind fei quality. Elite abilities: Frowny face horn strike. Use the horns on the head to collide with the opponent. Horn blade: the sharp horn slashes the air and forms a wind blade to attack the target from a distance and cut. Wind protection: the power of wind floats on the surface of the body and forms a layer of wind shield. Sword strike storm: summon a storm that covers a wide area. The storm is mixed with sword chi that can slice steel plates, and it will carry out a carpet attack. Exclusive skill: Frowny face swift wind. While controlling the wind, it can increase the flow of the wind and increase the speed of wind-type abilities. The wind speed rapid antelope was considered a rather unorthodox evolution path for the sword horn speed antelope. It had abandoned its close combat ability and turned into a violent spellcaster. It was obvious just by looking at the gold-grade ability, Sword Strike Storm. When the wind speed rapid antelope circulated its spiritual power, it would be able to summon a storm that covered a wide area. The storm was mixed with sword chi that could slice steel plates, and it would carry out a carpet attack. It was considered a very violent group ability. Chapter 84. With the addition of the wind speed rapid antelope's adorable appearance, the price could increase by several folds. Lin Yuan patted the sword horn speed antelope's head with satisfaction and thought, "This little fellow is really hard-working. This little guy is really hard-working. He can be sold for a good price." The wind speed rapid antelope looked at Lin Yuan with sparkling eyes, while its soft wool and cute horns rubbed against Lin Yuan's hand. It was thanking Lin Yuan for allowing its life to transform. Perhaps Lin Yuan would sell this wind speed rapid antelope in the near future and allow it to have its own spirit chi professional partner. It would help the wind speed rapid antelope and the spirit chi professional. This was the best ending for the wind speed rapid antelope. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly felt the feedback of spirit qi from the sword horn-speed antelope's body, which broke through the barrier between his D-rank and C-rank spirit qi professional. With the intervention of this spirit qi, the spirit qi mist within his body started to constantly condense. Finally, the spirit qi mist condensed into a drop of sparkling water droplet. Traces of spirit qi constantly gathered towards the water droplet and fused into it, increasing the water droplet's volume. At this moment, Lin Yuan knew that he had officially become a C-rank spirit qi professional. Lin Yuan's alarm didn't go off, but his phone rang. Lin Yuan took the phone and saw that it was an unknown number. Lin Yuan didn't have many numbers saved in his phone, except for Chu Ci and a few numbers that he had used to purchase goods. This included Yang Mingkai, Lu Jie and Aneng. Even Zhou Jiesin could only contact him on the star web. Now that his phone was ringing, it was most likely someone sent by Ling Xiao. After picking up the phone, before Lin Yuan could say anything, a rather respectful voice came from the other end. Lord Lin Yuan, I am one of Lord Ling Zhao's subordinates. My name is Ling Wu. I am already at the Xia Region's county governor residence, and am waiting for you. Lin Yuan didn't expect someone to address him as Lord. Logically speaking, with Lin Yuan's status as a Class 2 creation master, he was already worthy of being addressed as Lord. However, it depended on who was being addressed as Lord. It was very normal for spirit qi professionals to address Lin Yuan as Lord Ling Xiao for help. However, Ling Wu was one of Lord Ling Zhao's subordinates. Lin Yuan was truly surprised that Ling Wu would address him as Lord. Lin Yuan did not have much to pack. The Spirit Lock Spatial Zone had already prepared sufficient energy ores, and the blue flash butterfly's cocoon was placed on the table, waiting to hatch. Lin Yuan estimated that it should be within these 2 days. In fact, there was a reason why Lin Yuan didn't channel spirit qi into the blue flash butterfly's cocoon to help it hatch. The blue flash butterfly broke out of its cocoon after undergoing development. This was the work of nature. If he accelerated this process, it would be equivalent to him changing nature's uncanny workmanship to a certain extent. Although the blue flash butterfly could also be hatched, its life potential and evolution potential would be greatly reduced compared to a naturally hatched blue flash butterfly. Therefore, even if he was very anxious to turn the blue flash butterfly into Morbius Bronze Spirit-Locked Fae, he was still waiting. Creation masters might be able to evolve phase and improve their quality. To a certain extent, creation masters were like omnipotent gods. However, during the phase formation stage, the creation master's interference would destroy the phase evolution potential. Since Lin Yuan didn't have anything to pack, he replied, I have already packed up. After receiving Lord Ling Zhao's message, I've already packed up. I'll head to the prefectural governor manor immediately. After hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan exited the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone and circulated his spiritual energy to recall Genius, Chimey, and Red Thorn into the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Usually, Lin Yuan wouldn't recall Genius, Chimey, and Red Thorn into the Spiritual Spatial Zone. Instead, he preferred to let them experience life in the outside world with him. For this trip, Lin Yuan might have a way to bring Genius and Chimey along. However, Lin Yuan was truly helpless against the massive Red Thorn. As such, Lin Yuan simply recalled them into the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Originally, Lin Yuan was planning to take a look at the changes in his abilities after becoming a C-rank spirit qi professional. He wanted to see how much time he would need to evolve the Usnias. He also wanted to see if it would be useful for the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus recovery. However, it was obvious that he didn't have the time now. After dressing up, Lin Yuan looked into the mirror and saw the bright and handsome youth. Lin Yuan revealed his white teeth and headed straight for the county governor's residence. Even though Lin Yuan had lived in the Xia region for so many years, he was still very unfamiliar with the county governor's residence. Previously, Lin Yuan had been living his own life in a well-behaved manner. He had never stepped foot into the Xia region's county governor's residence. This trip to the county governor's residence gave Lin Yuan a feeling as though it was a lifetime ago. After alighting from the thick-hoofed donkey cart near the county governor's residence, Lin Yuan walked for less than 3 minutes. He saw plenty of people standing at the entrance of the county governor's residence. Among them, there was a rather tanned man who was being held in the center by the crowd. Among these people, Lin Yuan recognized a few of them. As a resident of the Xia region, Lin Yuan naturally knew what the county governor looked like. Wasn't the county governor standing beside the tanned man, who was being held in the center by the crowd? Lin Yuan had also seen the few people standing beside the county governor. Previously, when he had opened the Fei store, it was inevitable for him to interact with them. However, this interaction was one-sided. Lin Yuan recognized them, but they wouldn't remember Lin Yuan, who was just a nobody. At that moment, the tan man also saw Lin Yuan. He took a few steps forward and waved his hand. Lord Lin Yuan is really fast. I just arrived at the bottom, and Lord Lin Yuan is already here. The people from the county governor's residence only knew that Ling Wu was Lord Ling Zhao's subordinate. When he arrived, Ling Wu didn't mention anything, and simply said that he was waiting for someone. Therefore, they automatically waited beside Ling Wu. However, they didn't expect that the person Ling Wu was waiting for was a youth. Furthermore, it was unbelievable that Ling Wu addressed this youth as Lord. However, when everyone saw the Class 2 Creation Master crest on Lin Yuan's chest, they understood. For such a young Class 2 Creation Master to have such a powerful background, it was self-evident. After exchanging pleasantries, Ling Wu summoned his Platinum Fei, the Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle. He then invited Lin Yuan to sit on the Fei. Previously, Lin Yuan had already sat on a Platinum Fei. Now that he was riding on the back of a Platinum Fei, he wasn't as excited and nervous as before. This Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle might be a fearsome power offense-type Fei, and a ferocious bird that would produce flames with every flap of its wings. The Platinum Fei quickly brought Lin Yuan to Redbud City. On the Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle's back, Ling Wu constantly conversed with Lin Yuan, and seemed rather intimate. Lin Yuan understood that City Lordess Ling Xiao had asked Ling Wu to fetch him, which was actually a kind of attitude. Otherwise, she would have just announced that Lin Yuan was going to Redbud City, and wouldn't have asked her subordinate to fetch him. Looking at Ling Wu's reaction, he was actually rather respectful toward Lin Yuan. This showed how much Ling Xiao valued Lin Yuan. Chapter 85. Radiance Federation Royal Capital. This was the most prosperous place in the entire Radiance Federation. As far as the eye could see, Linlin was always so harmonious. The noon sky was originally fine, but the sky had inadvertently turned gloomy. The burning ink-colored thick clouds extended their sharp claws at the clear sky. They were like evil devils that were greedy and cruel as they occupied the blue sky. The sky was pressed down by the ink-colored clouds, and it seemed to be a little lower out of nowhere. The sky above the royal capital had an oppressive feeling, as though black clouds were pressing down on the city. There seemed to be a beautiful arc between darkness and light that was evenly divided into two halves. Everything happened in a flash, and the ink-colored clouds in the darkness exploded with a bright electric spark that was like a slithering silver snake. It was overturning the seas and rivers in the dark quagmire. The wind blew and ruffled the lake water outside the royal capital. It also blew off a few spots of messy red on the branches, turning them into scattered splendor. At that moment, in the royal capital's leaning moon mountain, in the radiant moon palace's garden, a woman in a moon-colored robe raised her head and looked at the sky. It was dark and gloomy, light and darkness, oppressive and relaxed, dignified and elegant, and it complemented each other in the sky. She looked at this perfectly fused scene and sighed softly. The morning sun clears up in seclusion, and the evening rain overshadows high in the sky. The breeze brushed past the loose hair on the woman's forehead, adding a touch of gentleness. The clash between extremes would always be the embodiment of nature's charm, and this charm could cleanse one's state of mind during a shock. The woman lowered her head and fiddled with the lotus flower in the water jar. The lotus flower seemed to have spirituality, and the crimson lotus flower emitted a fragrance between the woman's fingers. At that moment, an ice-cold female voice echoed beside the woman. "Moon Empress, this sunset jade leaf lotus has been nurtured by you in the garden for just over 2 years, and it has already evolved to diamond." The Moon Empress lowered her head, picked up an amber bottle, and sprayed the sunset jade leaf lotus with the liquid inside. The sunset jade leaf lotus leaves glowed with multicolored light, as though it was a precious treasure. The mist that the woman sprayed out from the amber bottle had turned into a fragrance. This sunset jade leaf lotus might have evolved to diamond, but its diamond ability isn't a support type ability, but an attack type ability. The Moon Empress voice was a little regretful, as she spoke to the woman with the ice-cold voice. Songyue, go and plant the sunset jade leaf lotus in the lotus pond at the back of the hall. It would be a waste to leave the lotus fragrance in the garden. Songyue nodded. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard. As the footsteps got closer, a gentle male voice could be heard. Moon Empress, the young prodigy that I gave you previously, is the one who passed the Class 2 Creation Master exam in Redbud City during Ling Zhao's tenure. I have already confirmed that all 3 of the Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi professional exams have full marks. These questions were specially set by Elder Ning, and it is said that they are much trickier than the Lifestyle Class Union's exams. The man's voice made the Moon Empress raise her head, and her eyes lit up. He completed the Class 2 Creation Master exam at the age of 18, and actually scored full marks for the 3 Lifestyle Class Spirit Chi occupation exams. He is truly worthy of the title Young Prodigy. The man's gentle voice continued. Moon Empress, I have already informed Ling Xiao to bring the little genius over. You did a good job, Xianyu. Following the Moon Empress statement, the noisy wind that was blowing in the garden suddenly stopped, and there were no more disturbances. It was unknown if the wind had coincidentally stopped, or if the woman's words had stopped the disturbance. Xianyu quickly bowed. These are all things that I should do. But Moon Empress, the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association has heard that you have the intention to accept a disciple, and has chosen Creation Master Feng Yang, who is known as the #1 prodigy among the Creation Masters. Before the Moon Empress could speak, Songyue's ice-cold voice echoed first. Creation Master Feng Yang? A young Creation Master actually has a title? Could he already be a Class 4 Creation Master at such a young age? Xianyu looked at Songyue and smiled before replying in a gentle voice. No matter how much of a prodigy a Class 4 Creation Master is, it is not a position that can be reached by the younger generation. This Creation Master Feng Yang is only a Class 2 Creation Master, but it is said that he is already qualified to be promoted to a Class 3 Creation Master. The title Feng Yang is given by the Creation Master Association's 3 vice presidents to encourage him. He is now 24 years old. Songyue's expression didn't change, and her voice was still cold. Feng Yang, by the heavens' order to bestow the light of the sun. Such a title is truly impressive. Could it be that this Creation Master Feng Yang can lead the radiance? The Moon Empress laughed in response. Songyue, only you can say such words. However, with this encouragement, I believe that this Creation Master Feng Yang must have been carefully nurtured by the Creation Master Association. After hearing the Moon Empress words, Songyue twitched her mouth and said, Only you can say such words. Once I heard that my lord has the intention to accept disciples, the Creation Master Association had the intention to send over 7 or 8 individuals. If Feng Yang is truly outstanding, why didn't he send him over earlier? Now that he is sent over with a title, who knows if it is a new title? Songyue nodded. You are right, Songyue. This Creation Master Feng Yang is called Cheng Rui, and he was the first to be sent over by the Creation Master Association. Back then, the Moon Empress rejected him because she was too busy. Now that he has a title, he is sent over again. I wonder what the Moon Empress thinks of him. The Moon Empress waved her hand. Forget it. Since the Creation Master Association has been so generous twice, this Empress won't reject it. When the young prodigy comes over, ask the Creation Master Association to bring this self-titled Creation Master Feng Yang over as well. Songyue responded in response. Yes, Moon Empress. At the same time, Dean Wang of the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy has also recommended someone to you. He isn't just a Creation Master, but he is also the Radiance 100 Sequence's #3 seat. His nickname is Overflowing Sea. The Moon Empress replied. Then bring him over as well. Then bring him along. Let the little prodigy witness the strength of those who stand at the peak of the younger generation. When Song Yue heard the Moon Empress' words, her cold voice suddenly had a hint of surprise. Moon Empress is so considerate for the young prodigy. Could it be that you are planning to accept the young prodigy as a disciple? Wouldn't Song Yue and I have an additional young master? The Moon Empress smiled. I will only know if he succeeds after I personally test him. The Moon Empress might be saying this, but she recalled the information that Song Yue had sent over. That stack of words recorded the scenes of a youth trying to survive with his younger sister. After the spirit guard's loyalty, he sent his younger sister to school, and he did his best to prepare Phase for his younger sister. When doing business, he adhered to principles and wasn't arrogant or rash. These qualities were what the Moon Empress admired. Character was precious, and at certain times, it was even more important than talent. However, she would only know after she truly saw him. As one of the Moon Empress' 2 moon envoys, Song Yue was currently going to the Creation Master Association and the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Chi University to pass on the Moon Empress information. However, when she left, Song Yue already knew that she was going to have an additional young master. Otherwise, with the Moon Empress temper, she wouldn't reveal the slightest bit of favoritism. Song Yue, follow me to the breeding room. You are going to be teacher's person, and you must prepare the necessary greeting gifts. The Moon Empress was thinking about how much the Chef Supreme and Bamboo Monarch treasured their disciples. The Moon Empress expressed that it was just child's play. Chapter 86. The Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle's flying speed was extremely fast, and soon arrived at Redbud City. Ling Yuan stood on the Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle's back and looked over, but he couldn't see the entire city. It was obvious how vast Redbud City was. The Scarlet Feather Fire Eagle didn't stop, but it wasn't like how Lin Yuan's previous flying phase stopped at the designated landing spot in Redbud City. Instead, it flew straight into the Redbud City City Lordess residence and stopped on the limestone steps outside the City Lordess residence. Lord Lin Yuan, follow me in. I reckon that Lord Ling Xiao has been waiting for a long time. This statement made Lin Yuan's brows raise. When he received Ling Wu's notification, he immediately went to the Xia region's county governor's residence without any delay. Therefore, it wasn't because he was slow, but because in Ling Wu's heart, Ling Xiao was in a hurry to see him. Since Lin Yuan couldn't think of a reason, Lin Yuan didn't want to think about it anymore. In any case, when he saw Ling Xiao, he believed that Ling Xiao would give him an answer. Lin Yuan followed Ling Wu into the City Lordess Residence's Grand Hall, and Ling Xiao was the only one there. After Ling Wu brought Lin Yuan over, he reported to Ling Xiao and went to busy himself with his own matters. Ling Xiao looked at Lin Yuan, and his expressionless face didn't show any joy. However, Lin Yuan could feel the joy in Ling Xiao's actions. It must have been a tiring journey. Have a meal with me at noon, and I will bring you to the royal capital in the afternoon. After hearing the words royal capital, Lin Yuan's previous doubts seemed to be answered. It seemed like the benefits that even Elder Ning was envious of were in the royal capital. The benefits of the royal capital and creation masters could even make a class 4 creation master like Elder Ning envious. Could it be related to the 3 majesties above the clouds? City Lordess, this kid isn't tired. May I know why we are going to the royal capital? Ling Xiao hesitated for a moment and asked. The Moon Empress wishes to meet you. He didn't say anything else. Originally, if Lin Yuan didn't ask, Ling Xiao didn't intend to say anything, and would just bring Lin Yuan to the Moon Empress. As for the Moon Empress' intention to accept a disciple, Ling Xiao might know about it, but he wouldn't reveal it to Lin Yuan. Ling Xiao really hoped that the Moon Empress disciple would be in Redbud City. Mentioning the leak might give him a better idea, and prepare to perform well in advance. However, Ling Xiao also understood what could be said and what could not be said. As it was related to the Moon Empress thoughts, Ling Xiao didn't dare to say much. Keeping his mouth shut was the best choice. Lin Yuan didn't expect that he had guessed correctly. It seemed like the great benefit that Elder Ning mentioned was related to the Moon Empress. Ling Xiao sized up Lin Yuan and said, Before eating, go take a bath and change your clothes. I will get someone to prepare your clothes. You must not be rude when meeting the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan suddenly felt as though he was being despised. She looked at the pair of jeans she was wearing, and the white half-sleeved shirt she was wearing. She then looked at Ling Xiao's eyes. Lin Yuan was sure that he was really being despised. Ling Xiao called 2 people over, and they were the city lord residence's staff members. Ling Xiao asked them to bring Lin Yuan to take a bath and change his clothes. After cleaning up, Ling Xiao's eyes lit up when she saw Lin Yuan again. What he had chosen for Lin Yuan was nothing more than a set of standard spirit chi clothing. The black spirit chi clothing had some dark patterns, a fitting cut, and a matte texture with some simple metal decorations. When Lin Yuan was wearing such a simple spirit chi clothing, even Ling Xiao couldn't help but say that the person on top of the world was like jade, and the young master was unparalleled. Apart from his handsomeness, there was also a kind of calmness. This was a kind of aura that was previously concealed by Lin Yuan's clothing. Now that this aura was being emitted, it really added a little manly aura to Lin Yuan. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the lunch wasn't simple. There were 8 dishes on the table, and only he and Ling Xiao were eating. Most of the ingredients for the dishes were from gold phase. This meal made Lin Yuan understand what it meant to be rich and imposing. This meal was equivalent to eating half a gold fei. It would at least cost close to 10,000 radiance dollars. However, when the dishes entered his stomach, Lin Yuan could vaguely feel that the spirit chi in his body was constantly increasing. The food made from gold spiritual ingredients actually had the effect of slowly increasing one's cultivation. When Ling Xiao saw that Lin Yuan was almost done eating, she said to the butler, "Prepare another portion of Spirit Swamp Rhino's milk." Spirit Swamp Rhino was a platinum fei, and it was said that its milk had an extremely strong bone strengthening effect. The Spirit Swamp Rhino was a platinum fei, and it was said that the Spirit Swamp Rhino's milk had an extremely strong bone strengthening effect. It was actually made into a double skin milk dessert. After eating this meal, Lin Yuan somewhat understood that cultivation was really like rolling a snowball. When it was a small snowball, it was very hard to roll it into a big snowball. If one used too much force in the middle, the snowball would scatter. But when the small snowball became a big snowball, no matter how much it rolled on the ground, it might not scatter, but it would be hard to feel the snowball's volume increase. Therefore, if the snowball's volume wanted to increase, one had to do their best to not let go of any of the snow and fuse all of it into the body. This was also why high-tier spirit chi professionals would use large amounts of food to supplement their cultivation while cultivating. Lin Yuan could feel the changes in his body's spirit chi and bones. Lin Yuan could not help but think that he could still afford the food made from bronze spiritual ingredients. In fact, he could even occasionally eat a few meals made from silver spiritual ingredients. Should he prepare meals made of these spiritual ingredients for himself and Chu Xi as well? After the meal, Ling Xiao summoned her aerial spirit beast. Lin Yuan looked over and saw that this spirit beast horse was snow white with a blue jade horn on its head. It also had a pair of giant white wings with specks of sapphire blue. It looked very handsome and elegant. Using true data, Lin Yuan found out that this elegant-looking horse was actually a fantasy breed. It was even a diamond fantasy breed, Blue Jade Pegasus. When Lin Yuan rode on the Blue Jade Pegasus with Ling Xiao, he really did not expect that he would actually be riding on the back of a fantasy breed fei. The Blue Jade Pegasus flapped its wings and soared into the sky. The sharp horn on its head drew across the sky with a dreamy blue color and a jade-like luster. It had a little of the feeling of Lantian's warm jade smoke. The Blue Jade Pegasus flew at an extremely fast speed, and when Lin Yuan looked at the ground, he felt that the mountains and rivers on the ground were like illusions. Even with the Blue Jade Pegasus speed, it will take over a day to travel from Redbud City to the royal capital. During this period of time, you can recuperate on the back of the Pegasus. Lin Yuan nodded in agreement. City Lord, even with the Blue Jade Pegasus speed, it actually takes over a day to reach the royal capital. The royal capital is really far from Redbud City. Lin Yuan looked at the illusory mountains and rivers under his feet, and could not help but click his tongue again. Chapter 87. Ling Xiao looked at the illusory mountains and rivers beneath his feet, which were constantly changing as the blue jade Pegasus flapped its wings. Redbud City isn't considered far from the royal capital. Among the 32 cities, Redbud City is located in the south-central region and is considered the 14th closest city to the royal capital. The extreme north's Cold Frost City, the extreme south's Blazing Flame City, and the west's Marsh Roost City are considered the further cities. Even with the blue jade Pegasus's speed, it will take at least half a month to reach. Ling Xiao didn't usually speak much, but he was willing to explain to Lin Yuan. As Lin Yuan listened to Ling Xiao's description, he felt that the knowledge he learned from books was ultimately just a number. No matter how shocking the number was, it couldn't compare to sitting on a fantasy breed Fae and feeling its speed, using time to measure the Radiance Federation's vastness. If we travel by water, will the time be shorter? Lin Yuan realized that Ling Xiao had been guiding the blue jade Pegasus to travel on land. Even if they passed through water, it would be inland rivers and lakes, and never the sea. Ling Xiao used his hand to caress the blue jade Pegasus's neck and combed its fur. But his expression turned grave. When you possess a Fae that can fly in the sky, the first lesson you have to learn is not to fly above the sea. After the Spirit Chi awakening, the sea, which humans could freely fish before the Spirit Chi awakening, had become the most dangerous region after the Spirit Chi awakening. No matter how vast the land was, it would only occupy less than 40% of the planet, and the remaining 60% was the sea. The sea was deep and undetectable. Even in the coastal waters, one might encounter a wild gold Fae. A goldfish-type Fae could easily overturn a fishing boat in the sea. Occasionally, platinum Faes would come to the coastal waters, which made the coastal waters exceptionally dangerous. If one were to fly above the sea and encounter a giant whale Fae, the giant whale Fae might accidentally spit out a water pillar and shoot it down, resulting in death or injury. Lin Yuan could hear the seriousness in Ling Xiao's words, and he immediately remembered them. He engraved these words firmly in his heart, but he still asked, even a diamond/fantasy breed Fae can't do it? Ling Xiao turned around and looked at Lin Yuan with a look of admiration. He did not expect Lin Yuan to be able to tell that this blue jade Pegasus was a diamond/fantasy breed Fae. It wasn't hard to see that the blue jade Pegasus was a fantasy breed, but in order for Lin Yuan to ride it comfortably, Ling Xiao had already restrained the blue jade Pegasus' prowess. Lin Yuan could still tell that the blue jade Pegasus was a fantasy breed. Such insight wasn't something that a person who had just become a Class 2 creation master would have. However, while Ling Xiao was full of praise, the words that came out of his mouth were especially serious. These serious words made Lin Yuan's hair stand on end, because there might be myth breed Faes in the deep sea. Myth breed? Lin Yuan asked. Lin Yuan had never heard of myth breed before. In fact, there was no mention of it in the star web. But for some reason, these three words seemed to have a magic power that shook people's hearts. Yes, a myth breed. It was an existence that was superior to the fantasy breed. When a Fae reached the legend grade and fused with the world willpower to form a willpower rune, it could be called a fantasy breed. Fantasy breed Faes had already surpassed the scope of science, and were Faes that only existed in fantasy. As for myth breed, it transforms shallow fantasies into real myths. Every myth breed Fae that appears is equivalent to a myth, and each Fae's power is enough to create a myth. When talking about the myth breed, Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with deep yearning and respect. Ling Xiao's words had opened the door to a new world for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had always thought that fantasy breeds were the pinnacle. As a creation master, Lin Yuan knew that Faes had limitless possibilities to evolve, but he didn't expect it to be a myth above fantasy. When Ling Xiao saw Lin Yuan's shocked expression, he thought to himself, if Lin Yuan could become the Moon Empress disciple, it wouldn't be too early to say this. Then Lin Yuan would be able to touch the myth realm. After all, the Moon Empress was a living legend. Lin Yuan, the myth breed is a secret that the Radiance Federation hasn't publicized on Star Web, so don't spread it. Also, do you know how the grades of fantasy breed Faes are divided? Lin Yuan still couldn't understand Ling Xiao's question. However, The answers to these questions aroused his desire for the unknown. Junior doesn't know, please tell me, City Lord. Ling Xiao pointed at the blue jade Pegasus and said, this blue jade Pegasus is a Class 1 fantasy breed Fae. Fantasy breed Faes are classified as Fantasy V, and every transformation is equivalent to one sublimation. Lin Yuan firmly engraved the words Fantasy V transformation in his heart. Ling Xiao looked at Lin Yuan and suddenly said, that's right. If you have the ability, when you become a creation master, don't let your combat strength fall behind. Lin Yuan was deeply moved by Ling Xiao's words. Creation masters were just powerful means to evolve Faes. Although it was also considered a kind of strength, at certain times, a combat class spirit chi professional's ability was the foundation of one's survival. At this point, neither Ling Xiao nor Lin Yuan spoke again. The sun set in the west and night fell. The thin air in the sky was chilly. After October it was already autumn. The bright moon hung in the sky, and when Lin Yuan looked at the bright moon, he felt that the bright moon was within reach. But when he reached out, the bright moon felt like it was the furthest distance in the world. Lin Yuan looked at the bright moon for a night until dawn broke, and the sun and moon alternated. Lin Yuan suddenly comprehended something while the sun and moon alternated, and a willpower rune that looked like the alternation of yin and yang appeared in Lin Yuan's spiritual world. Lin Yuan closed his eyes and felt the willpower rune that was born from the sun and moon alternating. Ling Xiao's eyes were wide open. Even if Ling Xiao lost his 7 emotions, he couldn't help but want to curse. What a freaking genius! This kid on my blue jade Pegasus actually comprehended a willpower rune while looking at the sunrise. When did willpower runes become so easy to comprehend? If Ling Xiao didn't have a willpower rune, and Lin Yuan was extremely close, Ling Xiao wouldn't have been able to sense the formation of Lin Yuan's willpower rune. However, Ling Xiao didn't know that Lin Yuan had more than one willpower rune. There were 3 willpower runes in Lin Yuan's mind, and they were constantly flying around Lin Yuan's spiritual energy. Chapter 88. Ling Xiao was amazed at Lin Yuan's talent. Lin Yuan had comprehended a willpower rune just by looking at a sunrise, and Ling Xiao couldn't help but want to trample on Lin Yuan. However, Ling Xiao circulated his spiritual power, which was suffused with a cyclone, to isolate the air currents in the sky. It allowed Lin Yuan to be in the most suitable environment to comprehend and silently guard him. When Lin Yuan opened his eyes, Ling Xiao withdrew his spiritual power and said to Lin Yuan seriously, after comprehending a willpower rune, you will be one step closer to becoming a fantasy breed. Now that you have comprehended the willpower rune, you are one step closer to becoming a fantasy breed. However, remember this. If you want your Fae to reach the 3rd transformation of Fantasy V, don't let it evolve into a fantasy breed after reaching platinum. When Lin Yuan heard Ling Xiao's words, he couldn't help but ask, what if I want to reach Fantasy V? I don't know how to achieve Fantasy V, but it is best to evolve my Fae's quality to legend at gold grade and transform it into a fantasy breed. Otherwise, unless I have a great fortuitous encounter, I will be stuck at Fantasy 3 for the rest of my life. Lin Yuan remembered Ling Xiao's words. These words were very precious to a combat class spirit chi professional who had just comprehended a willpower rune. If I can evolve a bronze Fae to legend and evolve it into a fantasy breed, will I have a chance to reach the 5th transformation of Fantasy V? Ling Xiao took a deep breath and glanced at Lin Yuan. Do you think it is as easy to evolve a bronze Fae to legend or a gold Fae to legend? It is more than 100 times harder to evolve a bronze Fae to legend than a gold Fae to legend. Even a Class 4 creation master might not be able to do it even if they go all out. Furthermore, do you think that willpower runes are so easy to obtain? Even among the Radiance 100's younger generation, not everyone has a fantasy breed. Most of them aren't stuck at legend, but at the willpower rune. Indeed, becoming a member of the Radiance 100 sequence would allow one to enjoy the Radiance Federation's resources, and the Creation Master's resources would be ample. Even if a gold Fae couldn't evolve to legend, it shouldn't be a problem to evolve to legend at platinum. However, Lin Yuan didn't feel that a willpower rune was difficult. The arrival of his 3 willpower runes was as smooth as drinking water. It was so natural. Ling Zhao's words reminded Lin Yuan of something. Lin Yuan had always subconsciously regarded the difficulty of evolving phase above bronze to legend as the same. Whether it was bronze, silver, or gold, as long as the spirit energy was in place, it would be successful with the right combination of spirit materials. But now Lin Yuan realized that he was wrong. This situation was only suitable for him, and not other creation masters. Lin Yuan didn't have to worry about evolving phase to legend, but he didn't have any good solutions for his source-type life form, Red Thorn. It could be said that Red Thorn's evolution was a huge problem that Lin Yuan was facing. Even now, he did not have any good ideas. After flying for 1 day and 1 night, he could already see the royal capital's silhouette under the rising sun. The majestic royal capital was very magnificent, and under the rising sun, Lin Yuan's heart was filled with lofty sentiments. Royal capital, I Lin Yuan am coming. Yo, isn't this the Radiance 100 sequences Lord Overflowing Sea? The Radiance 100 should be participating in the trial mission now. Why is Lord Overflowing Sea here at the Leaning Moon Mountain? The one speaking was a youth with thin lips. When he spoke, he might have a sincere smile on his face, and his actions were passionate, but his true feelings and passion couldn't conceal that kind of fake feeling. Cheng Rui looked at the Radiance 100 sequences Lord Overflowing Sea, Long Tao, who was standing beside him with an arrogant expression. Lin Yuan felt the pressure increase. Long Tao might be the Radiance 100 sequences Lord Overflowing Sea, and a powerful combat class spirit chi professional. At the same time, he was also an extremely talented creation master. Cheng Rui's combat ability couldn't be compared with Long Tao's, but in terms of creation master talent, he might not have competed with Long Tao before. But he was certain that he was stronger than Long Tao. After all, he was known as the most talented creation master of the younger generation, and had the title of Fengyang when he was just a Class 2 creation master. Long Tao didn't even look at Cheng Rui. Instead, he looked at the elder standing behind Cheng Rui and said, Lord Overflowing Sea, since you aren't being sincere, then don't call me that. Since the title Lord Overflowing Sea isn't sincere, then don't call me that. I have never liked to play around. A Class 2 creation master already has a title, and we are around the same age. Why don't the Creation Master Association give me, Long Tao, a title too? Long Tao's words had a hidden meaning. He wasn't just targeting Cheng Rui, but also the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association that was standing behind Cheng Rui. Long Tao wasn't the only one dissatisfied with the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association's actions. The Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy was also dissatisfied. No matter how high one's potential was, once one reached that status, one would naturally be given a glorious title. To be given a title at Class 2, and to proclaim that one had the #1 talent among the younger generation of creation masters, it would definitely make many talented youths feel dissatisfied. Cheng Rui's face immediately turned pale. The elder standing behind Cheng Rui quickly said, Long kid, your words are too much. Little dragon, you've gone too far with your words. Cheng Rui is indeed capable and worthy of this title. The elder behind Cheng Rui was the vice president of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association, and had accumulated prestige for a long time. He was currently choking on Long Tao's words. However, with Long Tao's status, even he didn't dare to reprimand Long Tao for being the Radiance 100's #3 seat. Furthermore, Long Tao was standing beside the dean of the Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy, the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association, and the Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy had always been in a competitive relationship. If Long Tao said a few more words, this old fellow who had been competing with him for many years would probably join the battle. Long Tao still had the same expression, and didn't even look at Cheng Rui. A few days ago, I successfully passed the Class 3 Creation Master exam at the Ascending Dragon City's Creation Master Association. If Cheng Rui is capable enough to accept this title, I wonder if I can also obtain the title that the Creation Master Association prepared in advance? However, even if the Creation Master Association prepared a title, I will not accept it. Once I become a Class 4 Creation Master, I will naturally take the title that belongs to me. Long Tao's words were like slaps after slaps. There was nothing wrong with his words, but they were all ruthlessly slapping Cheng Rui's face. Long Tao's words caused the vice president of the Creation Master Association's face to turn green and pale, and he had a displeased expression. But in the end, Long Tao's words weren't wrong. Had it not been for the Moon Empress accepting a disciple, no matter how talented Cheng Rui was, he wouldn't have prepared a title at Class 2. He had prepared a title just to solidify his reputation as a young Creation Master. But now, Long Tao was already a Class 3 Creation Master. Even if Cheng Rui had the potential to become a Class 3 Creation Master, he was ultimately not a Class 3 Creation Master. The vice president of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association didn't look at Cheng Rui with as much confidence as before. However, after thinking about it, the Moon Empress' acceptance of a disciple was ultimately her choice. The Moon Empress only had a single thought as to who she would choose. Chapter 89. The Dean of the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy stood there and was spinning 2 jade spheres in his hand. He looked at the Creation Master Association's vice president and said, "Old thing, the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association can't even nurture Creation Masters better than our academy. Therefore, the title of number 1 Creation Master among the youth generation doesn't belong to your association, but our academy." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man holding the jade ball laughed out loud. This laughter was very forthright, and it sounded like it came from the bottom of his heart. However, it was also this laughter that angered the Creation Master Association's vice president to tremble slightly. It was obvious that he was rather angry. Old thing, what is there to be happy about? After all, Long Tao is a registered Class 3 Creation Master in our Ascending Dragon City's Creation Master Association. He is also considered a member of our Creation Master Association. The Dean of the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy stopped spinning the jade sphere in his hand and turned around with a flabbergasted expression. "You rotten old man, you are too shameless. How can you say such things? Why don't you ask if the Ascending Dragon City's Creation Master Association is the same as your Royal Capital's Creation Master Association? If that's the case, then all the Federation students are also our Academy students." The Creation Master Associations in the various cities were in a competitive relationship. Each city's Creation Master Association would strive for the city's Creation Master resources. Whichever city's Creation Master exam was the same as being recorded in the city's Creation Master resources. The Royal Capital's Creation Master Association might be located in the Royal Capital and was just like the headquarters of the various Creation Master Associations. However, the actual situation wasn't like this. Instead of saying that it was the headquarters of the various Creation Master Associations, it was better to say that it was the number 1 rival of the various Creation Master Associations. The 2 elders had immediately started arguing at the foot of the Leaning Moon Mountain. It made Cheng Rui and Long Tao feel rather awkward. Cheng Rui didn't dare to mention that he was the number 1 Creation Master among the youth generation in front of Long Tao. In fact, when he thought about his title, he didn't feel as proud as before and felt rather ashamed. However, Long Tao obviously didn't plan to let Cheng Rui off so easily. "I saw your interview on the Star Web. Your appearance on the Star Web is different from your current appearance. You look like a leader of the youth generation on the Star Web." Long Tao's words were faint, but there was no doubt that these words were more like a heavy punch than the previous slap. Cheng Rui was so angry that his face turned from green to purple. "Long Tao, don't go too far. You are 1 year older than me. 1 year later, I will also become a Class 3 Creation Master. Your Creation Master talent might not be better than mine. He's just a year older than me." If Long Tao had been interested in talking to Cheng Rui before, He didn't even have the slightest interest in talking to him now. A person who couldn't even face his own weaknesses, and instead looked for excuses. In Long Tao's eyes, such behavior was already the performance of a weakling. After Long Tao entered the Radiance 100 sequence, the competitors he faced were generally a few years older than him. The oldest among them was 10 years older than him. This was because the Radiance 100 could only stay for 10 years at most. Long Tao had overcome all obstacles along the way, and had used 4 years to ascend to the 3rd seat. His creation master methods hadn't been neglected either. It was because Long Tao never found an excuse for his failure. Instead, he faced failure head-on, analyzed it, and finally cherished it. He cherished it because the number of failures was getting lesser and nearing zero. Cheng Rui's method was exactly what Long Tao despised. You can't be thinking of saying that life is full of ups and downs. Don't bully the young for being poor, right? The words that Cheng Rui wanted to say were stuck in Long Tao's throat again. At this moment, Cheng Rui finally understood that he couldn't win against Long Tao with words. He would only be asking for trouble if he continued. Cheng Rui had never interacted with Long Tao before. Long Tao had always taken the domineering and fierce route during the competition, and he wasn't good with words during interviews. Cheng Rui didn't expect him to be a chatterbox that could anger someone to death. At this moment, a gentle and clear voice echoed from MT Clear Moon. I'm here to meet Elder Du and Elder Meng on the Moon Empress orders. This gentle voice made Long Tao narrow his eyes. The voice sounded as though it was right beside him, but it also felt as though it was nowhere to be found. After calming down for a long time, Long Tao still couldn't hear the source of the voice. On the other hand, Elder Du, the vice president of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association, and Elder Meng, the dean of the Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Chi University's Creation Master Academy, spoke to the sky. Thank you, Mystic Moon Envoy. As Elder Du and Elder Meng's voices echoed, it was unknown when a man wearing a silver robe was standing on the tunnel at the foot of MT Clear Moon. He was walking over unhurriedly, but in just 2 steps, he had already traversed a distance of dozens of steps, and arrived in front of Elder Du and Elder Meng. Elder Du, Elder Meng is still as graceful as before, but you can't go up the mountain now. We still need to wait for a noble person to arrive. After speaking, Mystic Moon shut his mouth. Elder Du and Elder Meng looked at each other, and saw shock in each other's eyes. Mystic Moon was a King Class expert, and had already caught a glimpse of the pinnacle of King Class. His contracted phase were mainly spiritual type, even though he was just a support type spirit chi professional. If an expert of the same rank were to say that the most troublesome enemy they would face, it would definitely be a spirit chi professional with a spiritual type Fey. Putting aside Mystic Moon's strength, he was one of the Moon Empress 2 Moon Envoys. No matter where he went, he would represent the Moon Empress will. Mystic Moon might look gentle, but his actions were abnormally domineering. He was like a blade that was hidden in the pure white snow, invisible and formless. However, when he made contact, his head would be separated from his body. Mystic Moon might not be as unreasonable as Cold Moon, but he was abnormally arrogant. Making the 2 of them wait here for a noble person? The word noble person meant that the visitor should be rather familiar with the Moon Empress, and could be considered as one of them. Otherwise, he would only be called a noble guest and not a noble person. To be able to bear the word noble from Mystic Moon, it was imaginable what kind of status this visitor had. Elder Du and Elder Meng pulled Cheng Rui and Long Tao, who were still quarreling, to the side. Even Long Tao, who was the Radiance 100's 3rd seat, had withdrawn his aura and looked abnormally obedient. At that moment, a snow-white Pegasus with sharp blue jade-like horns and blue jade-like wings flew over from the distance and headed straight for the Leaning Moon Mountain. Mystic Moon, who had a gentle but expressionless face, pulled up a smile. At that moment, the blue jade Pegasus had already landed. Ling Xiao brought Lin Yuan down from the Pegasus back. Elder Du and Elder Meng only glanced at Ling Xiao for a moment before looking away. They fixed their eyes on Lin Yuan, who was standing at the side. Lin Yuan's hair was a little messy due to the wind, but when he stood under the sunlight, he had an indescribable aura. Chapter 90. Of course, Elder Du and Elder Meng knew Ling Xiao. However, even the city lord of Redbud City was not worthy of Xian Yu's title. In that case, the only person that Xian Yu would refer to as a benefactor was the youth standing beside Ling Xiao. Apart from Ling Xiao, Lin Yuan could clearly feel 5 pairs of eyes staring at him. Feeling the gazes coming towards him, he didn't know these people. However, out of courtesy, Lin Yuan nodded in acknowledgement and took the opportunity to greet them. Ling Xiao wanted to introduce them, but Xian Yu's gentle and clear voice rang out. Everyone is here. Follow me to the Leaning Moon Mountain. Lin Yuan, come to my side. Let's go together. Lin Yuan had long noticed the silver-robed man who had spoken. The silver-robed man's aura was like a deep sea that had no ripples on its surface despite the turbulent undercurrents. But he didn't expect that this silver-robed man would actually recognize him. Lin Yuan looked at Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's throat moved a little, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan simply walked to Mystic Moon's side. Mystic Moon let out a bright smile and led Lin Yuan up the mountain. Ling Xiao, Elder Meng, and Elder Du walked together, while Long Tao and Cheng Rui stood on either side. The 5 of them followed Lin Yuan and Mystic Moon. At this time, Elder Du and Elder Meng looked at Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao greeted Elder Du and Elder Meng expressionlessly, just as Elder Meng and Elder Du thought. Elder Meng and Elder Du looked at Lin Yuan with a complicated gaze. It turned out that the young man who had lit up her eyes just now was also here to pick peaches. Looking at Mystic Moon's behavior, could it be that the Moon Empress already had feelings for this youth called Lin Yuan? Long Tao looked at Lin Yuan with a probing gaze. Cheng Rui looked at Lin Yuan with jealousy and complicated eyes. After Elder Meng and Elder Du asked Ling Xiao a few questions, they understood Lin Yuan's identity. It turned out that Lin Yuan was the fellow who had passed the Class 2 Creation Master exam in Redbud City. After the Creation Master Association was first reformed in Redbud City, it was now implemented in the Radiance Federation's 32 cities. What was the deeper meaning behind this? Elder Du and Elder Meng were well aware of this, but they didn't expect someone to meet such stringent requirements. And this person came so quickly. Long Tao's expression was calm, but Cheng Rui's face was obviously filled with dissatisfaction. Cheng Rui gritted his teeth. He was just a young kid who had just passed the Class 2 Creation Master exam. What was so great about him? Perhaps it was just a moment of luck. Now that he was about to have the ability to pass the Class 3 Creation Master exam, wouldn't it be as easy to crush this kid? Looking at Cheng Rui's expression, Long Tao burst into laughter. Why don't you calculate how much younger he is than you? Cheng Rui's face was full of expressions, especially after hearing Long Tao's words. At this moment, he looked as if he had eaten 30 lemons and 30 bitter gourds. It had to be said that the Leaning Moon Mountain was full of sceneries. Lin Yuan opened True Data. Along the way, apart from talking to Mystic Moon, he saw gold phase everywhere on the mountain. He even saw plenty of platinum phase. Most of these phase were plant species phase, and one could occasionally see some butterflies, dragonflies, bees, and small birds. Rare spiritual objects that were rarely seen in the outside world could be seen everywhere in the Leaning Moon Mountain. Xian Yu said, "A few more steps, and we will reach the Radiant Moon Palace." Xian Yu's words weren't just for Lin Yuan, but also for the people behind her. After passing through the mountain's gallery, Lin Yuan saw a palace that looked as though it was made of fluorite. The palace's main body was pure white like white jade, but it was emitting lustrous light, just like the light emitted from the moon. In front of the palace, there were 2 trees that were close to 10 meters tall. The trees were blooming with clusters of small gold and silver flowers, and the flowers were pressing down on the branches. These 2 trees were actually silver stamen gold luster caches. Lin Yuan felt as though he was going to fall when he saw True Data. These 2 silver stamen gold luster caches were both diamond rank level 10. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that these 2 silver stamen gold luster caches' quality had actually reached legend. Such cardinal treasures were planted at the palace's entrance without anyone contracting them, and they were just a scenery in front of the palace. This was truly unimaginable to Lin Yuan. When Xian Yu saw Lin Yuan looking at these 2 silver stamen gold luster caches, She took the initiative to introduce them to Lin Yuan. These two caches are rather good-looking, so they were planted here. The silver stamen gold luster caches are rather strange, but they don't have any fragrance. However, these osmanthus flowers are extremely delicious when used to make osmanthus honey. Cold Moon is very good at making osmanthus honey. I will get Cold Moon to scoop a bowl for you in a while. Phase like the silver stamen gold luster caches were already beyond Lin Yuan's knowledge. With true data, Lin Yuan could only know what it was called. Lin Yuan might not be clear, but Ling Xiao, Elder Du, and Elder Meng all knew what it was. Xian Yu said that a bowl of osmanthus honey was casually given to Lin Yuan. Even these three experts with high authority couldn't help but want to try and see if they could ask for a portion, even if it was just a few drops. The silver stamen gold luster cache's nectar was a good thing to wash away impurities in the body. When others used a drop, they would have to dissolve it in a cup of water and consume it a few times. If Lin Yuan were to drink this bowl of silver stamen gold luster caches, he would probably be able to wash away all the impurities in his body. There were only 2 silver stamen gold luster caches in the world, and they were both in the hands of the Moon Empress, which was planted in front of the Radiant Moon Palace. Every year, the Moon Empress would give 10 drops to the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Chi University and the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association. However, a few dozen years' worth of it was probably not enough to make a bowl. Xian Yu, I was the one who made the osmanthus honey, but you are giving it to someone else. If someone is to give it, it should be me. To Lin Yuan, the speaker's voice was as cold as the bone-chilling icy water in a cold pool. Lin Yuan looked at the woman and noticed that the blue-robed woman was also sizing him up. Xian Yu let out a bright smile. All right, Cold Moon, bring them in to see the Moon Empress. I still have a mission for the Moon Empress. Cold Moon nodded and said to everyone, follow me into the Radiant Moon Palace. After entering the Radiant Moon Palace, Lin Yuan felt that every corner of the Radiant Moon Palace's front corridor was filled with elegance. There was a high platform on the front corridor, and there were 2 boxes on the table. Cold Moon pulled Lin Yuan to her side and looked at Elder Du and Elder Meng. The Moon Empress means that there is a treasure in each of the 2 boxes on the high platform. Both sides can let the younger generation come up and pick the box. The treasure in the box will be the Moon Empress reward. Cold Moon's words made Elder Du and Elder Meng's eyes lit up. At the same time, they couldn't understand why there were only 2 brocade boxes when there were 3 people in the younger generation. Lin Yuan stood beside Cold Moon and watched calmly. Chapter 91. Long Tao and Cheng Rui stepped forward. After receiving instructions from their elders, they walked toward the high platform. Just as he stood on the high platform, one of the 4 maidservants who had been standing in the 4 corners of the hall stepped forward. In a flash, he appeared on the high platform. The woman looked to be in her 30s, but she gave off a delicate feeling. I am one of the tea attendants of the Radiant Moon Palace, and my name is Kai Cha. I am here to inform you that the treasure in the golden box is better than the treasure in the gray box. With that, he bowed to Tsang Yu. After Tsang Yu nodded, he retreated to the edge of the platform. He didn't return to his previous spot in the corner of the hall. One of the 2 boxes on the platform was gold, and the other was gray. Lin Yuan saw Long Tao and Cheng Rui's hands reaching for the golden box. At this moment, Long Tao's spiritual chi shook, causing Cheng Rui to take a few steps back. He then opened the golden box. The moment the golden box was opened, Lin Yuan smelled a sweet scent. There was a light purple bead in the box. The bead was about the size of a thumb. Although it was a light purple pearl, it emitted a purple light. The sweet taste from before didn't seem to come from the bead itself, but from the soft light emitted by the bead. Beside the light purple bead, there was a small wooden token. Apart from these 2 items, there was nothing else. At this moment, Kai Cha, who was standing by the side, said, "This treasure is a pearl produced by the purple coral shellfish when it reaches diamond grade. It is an excellent treasure for water-type phase, and has a chance to increase the possibility of water-type phase breaking through." Kai Cha's words caused Long Tao's calm expression to turn grave. His breathing also became heavier. His eyes were filled with extreme joy. Lin Yuan looked at this light purple pearl and could not help but click his tongue. This was not only a diamond spiritual ingredient, but also a diamond spiritual ingredient from the deep sea. The shell fei also had another name, the deep sea treasure. The reason was that shell species feis could produce pearls, and only experts were qualified to explore the deep sea. Just this point alone made the pearls produced by the purple coral shellfish a priceless treasure, not to mention the amazing effects of the purple coral shellfish pearl. Lin Yuan couldn't estimate the price of the purple coral shell pearls. However, just by looking at the envy in Ling Zhao's eyes, Lin Yuan already knew how rare the purple coral shell pearl was. After Long Tao took the purple coral shellfish pearl, he picked up the wooden tablet beside the purple coral shellfish pearl and saw a small sword engraved on it. At this moment, Kai Cha continued, "This wooden token has a small sword engraved on it, and it is a sword token of the Radiant Moon Palace. You can compete with the sword token holder of the Radiant Moon Palace, and the sword token holder's strength will be comparable to yours. If you win, you can exchange the sword token for another treasure. If you lose, it's nothing, it's just a competition." Long Tao turned to look at Senior Meng, who nodded at him. Long Tao looked at Kai Cha and asked, "I wonder if you are referring to a competition between combat class spirit chi adepts or creation masters?" Kai Cha said with a faint smile. "Since it is a sword token, it is naturally a contest between combat class spirit chi occupations. If the token is drawn with a vessel, it will be a contest between creation masters." Long Tao squeezed the token in his hand and said in a clear voice, "I am willing to accept the contest." Ever since Long Tao obtained the purple coral shellfish pearl, Cheng Rui, who was standing beside Long Tao, looked at Long Tao with eyes so gloomy that it was about to drip water. However, no one was paying attention to Cheng Rui's expression. Everyone's eyes were gathered on Long Tao, especially Lin Yuan. He didn't expect to be able to witness a fight between the Radiance 100 sequence number 3. After watching this duel, Lin Yuan knew that he almost knew what the combat power of the Radiance 100 sequence's peak experts was. He had seen the contest between White Devil and Unknown Flame. However, in the final battle, when White Devil's revival Swallowtail Butterfly was released from the cage and transformed into the disaster Swallowtail Butterfly, everything had ended in a crushing manner. Furthermore, White Devil might be sequence number 18 of the Radiance 100, but a healing class spirit chi professional's strategic significance was usually greater than their combat significance. However, Long Tao was the Radiance 100 sequence number 3 and had the title Overflowing Sea. He was a true combat class spirit chi professional. Kai Cha waved the sword token in her hand. The maidservant attire that was similar to Kai Cha's at the four corners of the hall were now standing on the platform. Lin Yuan looked over and noticed that the maidservants standing at the four corners of the hall looked exactly the same. Perhaps the only difference was the appearance of the hair ornaments on her head. When Cold Moon saw Lin Yuan's appearance, she gave a rare explanation. "Kai Cha, Xie Cha, Kai Cha, and Yin Cha are the Radiant Moon Palace's tea attendants. They are 4 sisters, and the Moon Empress picked them up 30 years ago. They have always been serving in the Radiant Moon Palace." Lin Yuan nodded. However, he didn't understand why Cold Moon was introducing the Radiant Moon Palace's members in such detail. It was as though he was going to get to know them in the future. "The 4 of us will share this sword token. I am the strongest, and the 3 of them are about the same strength. You can choose one of us as your opponent," Kai Cha said to Long Tao. Long Tao didn't hesitate and chose Kai Cha, who was currently speaking, and was also the strongest. When looking at this scene, Lin Yuan felt that Kai Cha's thoughts weren't simple. This simple statement was an overt scheme, but under such circumstances, Long Tao's temper and pride, as well as the people standing around him, would undoubtedly make Long Tao choose the strongest among the 4 of them. When Elder Meng saw that Long Tao and Kai Cha were about to fight, he quickly said to Cold Moon, who was standing beside Lin Yuan, "Dark Moon Emissary, fighting in the Radiant Moon Palace might cause damage to the items in the Radiant Moon Palace." Long Tao did not hold back and seriously injured the tea attendant. What should we do? This wasn't Elder Meng's first time in the Radiant Moon Palace, so he naturally knew about the 4 tea attendants. Every time he met the Moon Empress, he would be able to drink the spirit tea brewed by the 4 tea attendants. However, Elder Meng had never heard of the 4 weak-looking tea attendants fighting. Song Yu replied coldly, "This palace has been hardened by the fantasy v unyielding diamond resplendent tortoise. If it could be destroyed so easily by a junior, the Radiant Moon Palace would have long been destroyed. As for the competition, it was decided by the Moon Empress." After speaking, Song Yu circulated the spiritual power in her body and enveloped herself and Lin Yuan within the Qi whirlpool. When Elder Meng heard Song Yu's words, he naturally wouldn't go against the Moon Empress' wishes. Elder Du pulled Cheng Rui and left some space for Long Tao and Kai Cha. Lin Yuan heard Song Yu's words clearly. Song Yu wasn't polite to Elder Meng at all. A single order from the Moon Empress was enough for Elder Meng to not dare to say anything else. After all, Elder Meng was the Dean of the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Qi University's Creation Master Academy. He had overwhelming authority in the royal capital, but he didn't dare to show it here. Lin Yuan immediately expressed his gratitude to Song Yu for using the Qi whirlpool to protect him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.